South Point offers all the types of entertainment you'd expect at a first-class Las Vegas resort. Did you know our 400-seat showroom is one of Las Vegas's top destinations for live entertainment? Enjoy live performances by classic Vegas entertainers, bands, and today's hottest comedians, plus a rockin' dance floor. You can also enjoy live entertainment at the Grand View Lounge, where you'll feel all the vibes of old Las Vegas. Enjoy the music, and if you love to laugh, don't miss The Dirty at 12:30, our very own free comedy show, every Friday night at 12:30 a.m. in the Grand View Lounge. The Dirty is 100% free, so arrive early. Go to southpointcasino.com or call the box office at 77136 for today's performances at the showroom and the Grand View Lounge. When you're ready for your favorite cocktail, stop in and unwind at one of our 7 specialty lounges. There's a bar around every corner, because you're in Vegas, baby. South Point Casino has plenty of attractions for the whole family. Catch a movie. Our 16-screen movie theater includes 2 XD Extreme screens for the ultimate in viewing, sound, and luxury. After the show, treat the family to a variety of treats at our old-fashioned ice cream parlor, Kate's Corner. We scoop up a variety of creamy concoctions, including smoothies, hand-dipped cones, milkshakes, malts, sodas, and sundaes. At Kate's, there's something for everyone. And if you still got time to spare, our bowling center might be right up your alley. Voted Best of Las Vegas, it's a great place for friends and family fun. 64 lanes, a pro shop, snack bar, and arcade. And while the kids are bowling, you can play slots and sip on a drink in the Alley Cat Lounge while overlooking the lanes. For our more serious and professional bowlers, the South Point is also home to a separate tournament bowling plaza.
Welcome in. It is Football Frenzy on a Friday here on Sports by the Book. Happy to be with you. What a fabulous day we have. I'm Jeff Parles, and boy, we can say we're in the home stretch. College football, home stretch. Chris Andrews, Vinny Magliulo. Chris, of course, Sportsbook director here at the South Point. Vinny and Chris, a combined, what are we? Are we at 90 combined between the two of you guys now?
I'm at 45.
We're here.
491.
There you go.
91.
Bet the over.
Hey, bet the over. Vinny, of course, got
Make sure I don't get a bad number, though.
Well, 90 was a pretty good number, wasn't it, though?
Yeah.
91 is pretty good.
Don't bet over 92, though.
Yeah, don't.
And at 3 o'clock, you
well, then it's
Another soars over.
what are we? 146 then?
49.
149.
You'll add Jimmy, so be about 150. There you go.
150 under is a great number, but that if it's Nicotero, we'd bet the over and he'd lose. By the way, if you watched Punchlines earlier today, we're good over here.
You got the seat dried up?
Well, thankfully, I'm using the same chair that I used before.
Okay.
I think Vinny's actually in the Nicotero chair from earlier.
What do you mean? He didn't have an accident, did he?
Well,
define accident.
Define accident, correct. Let's just say
I don't feel anything funny.
I can interact. I can show you. Just went like that, but the drink was open and had about 30 more ounces of iced tea than in that water bottle.
Beautiful.
So, it's a very good job. Well, let's get into football, shall we, guys? This is the home stretch. 3 weeks to go in a regular season for college football. Of course, the actual final kick of this college football season is only, hey, you better get in here 2 weeks from today to get this card in to make sure it's in time for kick at 9 a.m. that Saturday after Thanksgiving. 25,000 guaranteed. Have to imagine we'll go through it. You would maybe.
We usually do.
We usually do. $5, as many cards as you want.
This is the first year we tried the college.
Right.
So we'll try it.
$5 a card.
Yep.
As many cards as you want.
No points.
15 games. Have at it.
Every game on there's a rivalry game of one sort or another. Jeff's favorite game of the year,
Farmageddon.
Yeah,
Game's not so good now, but the name is still great.
I know. But we got Michigan, Ohio State. We got the Iron Bowl.
Yep.
Which is another great name. Auburn, Alabama. What are some of the other ones we got on there?
Well, we got the battle for the Palmetto State, South Carolina and Clemson.
Ooh, that's going to be didn't look so good 2 months ago.
Well, you guys both were in here on Monday and said South Carolina was number 10. Independently got it there for both of you guys.
Great. You got Texas
A&M back again.
Oh, that's another great game.
The Bourbon battle with Kentucky and Louisville. Vinny.
Yes.
So there you go.
That's right.
And then, of course, the in-state battle here between UNLV and Nevada. Which
Nevada's playing a lot better lately, too.
So-
That looked like a gimme a couple weeks ago. Now I'm not.
Well, that's their game of the year, right? They'll be up for that game. For sure.
I spent 30 years in Reno. Believe me, they'll be up for that.
So I'll just tell you real quick. I mentioned the CFP stats lucky rankings.
Right.
Nevada is fourth unluckiest so far this year.
I didn't expect much out of them this year, but they've played much better than I expected.
Who's the unluckiest?
The unluckiest is Auburn, which makes a whole lot of sense. At number one, and then Kansas, and then actually Auburn and UCF. I didn't realize this. They're actually tied. They're actually both minus. They're negative 2.7 wins off expected, and then Kansas is at minus 2.6 off expected, and Nevada's at minus 2.5. So
so right there,
all pretty much there for the not luck boxes.
Yeah.
We'll get to the luck boxes later. Don't worry. I know we will on that. UNLV, by the way, not listed on either list. So there you go. Been
quick
pretty
story.
normal.
A couple years ago, I think maybe 2-3 years ago, I was quoted in the paper, about UNLV, and I'd spent years in Reno. I'm a Nevada fan. I said Vince Lombardi couldn't win at UNLV.
Well, Barry Odom can.
I never mentioned Barry Odom. That's my only caveat that I would say.
So we'll get UNLV. UNLV's actually last on the sheet today, so we'll get them at the end.
Yeah.
But we'll start tonight. We got 4 games tonight, fellas. Yeah. And I just want to start real quick. Colorado State is the team that stands in UNLV's way to make the Mountain West title game. Colorado State has 3 games left. They're a favorite tonight. They're going to be a favorite the last week of the year against Utah State. They go to Fresno next week. Fresno has really cooled off recently.
I thought early on, I thought they were going to be a team to challenge Boise for the championship.
And Fresno's losing to Air Force last week, so
they've fallen apart.
Haven't been the same since UNLV took
pretty much. Yeah, Mikey Keene has struggled as well. Colorado State, though, undefeated. So Norvell, of course, leaves Nevada, goes to Colorado State. Took them 2 years, but they're at least a reasonable football team this year. I think they get smacked by Boise in a Mountain West title game, but that could happen, could not happen still. 8.5 tonight, guys, but it's been all about the Pokes of Wyoming here tonight in this one in the betting markets.
We opened at 10.5. It's been all Wyoming money. I thought the opening number was okay, Jeff. I don't know.
I agree with you, Chris.
Evidently, I didn't see things the way the top handicappers did because they walked us all the way down. I take these notes before I actually come prepared for our show, Joe. Plus 10.5, plus 10, plus 9.5, plus 9, all the way down. We didn't skip any numbers. They walked us all the way down.
Well, and the under now too. It looks like they're playing the under, right? I mean, initial money came in a little play on the over. Was as high as 48, now 46. And I guess if you like the dog, the correlation would be to the under. So, but one-sided so far. Early, though.
I tell all my people I tell them the same thing all the time. Guys, we're going to win about half. We're going to lose about half. It's just the way it goes.
Well, this is the early game tonight.
Yeah.
Along with UTSA and North Texas, which we'll just go real quick here. UTSA currently 1-point favorites in this one against North Texas. Again, North Texas last week got armied more so than anything in that game. And that totals obscenely high at 72.5. Of course, last week that game only went under by 7 touchdowns last week with them and Army a week ago.
What was the final?
What was it? 17-6, right?
Something like that. Yeah.
Something.
9. Was it 17-9?
Was it 9? No, excuse me. 14-3. I overshot it. North Texas kept getting in the red zone, and Chandler Morris kept throwing interceptions, Chris.
I couldn't quite remember that one. If they're not big games, I don't. Even the big games, I barely remember. But yeah, it's been all UTSA money. One of the games. Actually, I think we have a very good menu tonight.
Nice card.
And of course, we haven't mentioned the big event of the night, Tyson and Paul.
Oh yeah, I know for bettors, people love it.
Bookmakers would loving it too. Yeah.
Well, you could. Is it more two-way in that? Boxing match, or is it more Tyson or more Paul here?
Well,
tonight?
Tickets, it's not even close.
It's
all Tyson.
Of course.
But the big money has come in on Paul, and if the bell rings to start the fight right now, we need Paul. But we still got a long way to go.
5 o'clock start, right? The card. I think the card starts at 5, which is these two games that we're mentioning right now. So,
and it'll
good
be
afternoon
on
and
here
evening
at South Point with sound on. We won't have sound on the prelims, but we'll have sound on for the big event.
And no charge.
No charge.
No charge. Never. Come on. Free parking.
Listen.
Good prices at the bar right behind us.
Yeah.
Come on down. Enjoy your Friday night, your Saturday morning and afternoon as well, Sunday as well.
Yeah.
Get here early if you want to go for Sunday morning, as always.
Sunday for sure. You can be you can sleep in a little bit on
You
Saturday.
can get here by 9:15 and still be okay.
Yeah.
You missed those first games, though. Don't ask to bet the 9 a.m. game at 9:15.
Well, although we have a lot of them on in games.
Yes, 100%. The other two games tonight, UCLA on the road at Washington. We talked about this. Huskies home road split struck again last week, where they were, I'll be polite. They were bad last week against Penn State. Some would say they were non-competitive in that game.
They really did get boat raced.
35-6, and it really wasn't even that close.
Right.
But now they're back at home. And, Chris, they have been as good as anyone in the country when you go the difference between what they are away from Husky Stadium and what they are at Husky Stadium. 3.5 now on this game. And I'll give UCLA credit. They really wrote the ship here because they look like they were heading for a 2-10 disaster.
Right.
They upset Iowa last week. They beat Rutgers. They beat Nebraska. They have a bunch of good wins the last few weeks for Deshaun Foster.
Before we knew how good Indiana was, they opened a 3-point dog, I want to say, against at home against Indiana. And the number got up to 6, maybe even 6.5.
Yeah, it didn't matter the number that day.
Didn't matter. And I texted a guy, actually a well-known guy who's a UCLA grad, said, "Are they really that bad?" He says, "I think they are, but we'll find out today." And after the game, he said, "Well, we found out today. They were really that bad." But to your point, Jeff, they have steadily improved over the course of the season. This is one of those deals, though, you really have to just not standardize the home and road. Okay, you give 3 points for home. Okay, great. That doesn't always work. Some schools or some teams are worth maybe, I've had some teams as much as 6 points as a differential. And Washington, I have it at 5, but I have a feeling next time I go take a look and dive into that a little bit more, they're going to be closer to a 6 because the differential has just been so great.
And to credit UCLA, what they've done in the last month is home and away too, which considerable travel to both coasts, and so much better. Both of these teams playing for a bowl bid right at this point, so it's not out of the question as we get into the home stretch here. A toggler laying 3.5 with the home team, taking 4 with UCLA.
Tough game.
I kind of like the dog a little bit, but
you are wearing the Husky polo, though.
That's just coincidence.
He's conflicted.
I like to wear a shirt of who's playing tonight. I had a Colorado State shirt. I had I had a Washington shirt. I like the color. I like the purple, so I wore that. But I really kind of lean towards UCLA tonight. But that home road split's just too much for me.
Yeah,
That'll back me off.
Washington undefeated at home. Their only loss in Seattle so far this year was the game at Lumen, the home of the Hawks, as Vinny just said, against Wazoo in a game that Washington should have won.
And it really wasn't a home game either.
No, that was a split. Yeah. That played as a neutral for sure in that game. All right, now we get to two of it's funny how a season based off expectations can look so different. Yeah. You have two teams underwater in the Big 12 overall here in this game, but 4-5 on Houston looks so much better than 3-6 on Arizona.
Yes, it does.
Where Houston, we thought they were going to be one of the worst teams in the conference, if not the worst team.
And they started out that way, too.
And they were dreadful the first month of the season. But Willie Fritz. What a coach. This team is 4-5 with, you win tonight as a small road dog.
Yeah.
You're playing for bowl eligibility next week against Baylor in a game that will be a pretty tightly lined game. Getting to a bowl in year one for Willie Fritz would be an absurdly great accomplishment with what this team was supposed to be. And then Arizona on the other side has been arguably the most disappointing team in the country.
I'm trying to think who would be more disappointing. I'd have to go through my numbers to look at that.
Florida State is still
Florida
number one.
State.
God,
Yeah,
okay,
Florida State's got that on lock, Chris.
I'm 68 years old. I don't know that I'll live long enough to see a team that's more disappointing.
Yeah,
I don't know that I will. But you're right about Arizona. Very disappointing. But Willie Fritz, we talked about him early in the year. I don't remember if it was on this year or one of the others. He's got his hands full this year. And he's not going to be very successful. But he has really improved this team dramatically over the course of this season. And that's one of the things you really have to watch for if you're going to get into this racket. You got to see teams. Don't just get married to a rating early in the year. It's a very short time period, generally 12 or 13 games, something like that. And a lot can change from week one to the final weeks of the season. We're still not in the final week, but we're getting close. And this team is greatly improved.
3-point move to the over. A lot of over money here too, right? Going back and forth between 1 and 1.5 here. So, but a good game, nice position too. 7:15 Pacific start. An example of how it will do more in this slot than if it was played tomorrow, even.
It'd be forgotten tomorrow.
Wouldn't even be almost an afterthought, really.
Yeah, it's just one of these.
Good spot.
Boy, I don't know if I want to take Houston. It does kind of feel like, all right, you got the underwater team that's playing hard, and then you have the underwater team that's packed it in. Arizona can still technically make a bowl game with winning these last 3 games. After tonight, they go on the road to Fort Worth next week, and then it's the Territorial Cup the final week of the year against ASU. Yeah. So conceivably they could win their last 3, but they've shown you no ability so far from what we've seen. It should not be there to win 3 straight.
Yeah,
for what
I made the game pick.
I think that's fine.
It's hard to. Yeah. It's going to be probably come down to the last couple plays or a big play here or there, turnover maybe.
So let's go to tomorrow now, Chris and Vinny. A game that I know Paul Stone bet in the games of the year, right out of the gate.
Texas, Arkansas. Go ahead.
Bingo. Vinny's got it.
What did I make? What did we make that one?
21. And
now it's 12.
Before well, I can tell you this. It started that day because before we got out of the studio, it was 17 last summer.
So now it's 12.
Just continued.
Just continuing down. For this week only, my screen just froze up on me. Where did you guys open this week? 14.5 or 15?
14.5.
Yeah, 14.5. With Texas at Arkansas. This is the old rivalry.
Who remembers Chuck Dykes?
Besides me?
I know. I knew I had one guy that would have.
They're pretty good there, guys. But, the question I have with Texas, more so than we kind of know what Arkansas is at this point. They're a talented team. Yeah. Their good has been quite good. Their bad has been last week, especially where Ole Miss is still, or 2 weeks ago, where Ole Miss is still scoring touchdowns against them. That's 63.
When they were the highest scoring team of the week.
Yeah, you were spot on with that, Chris. 30-1 in that week. Arkansas, of course, held Tennessee to 14, won that game in a big upset. Yeah. There's not really bowl eligibility on the line because Arkansas hosts Louisiana Tech next week, so they'll be big favorites to get to win 6. But for Texas, look, they're 8-1. They're right now in the bye slot for the SEC because they have the best record in the conference, but their best win right now is at Vanderbilt. I really haven't beaten anyone, and there's an argument to be made that this is the second best opponent they might see this year as Wild, or at least until the final week of the year against A&M.
Yeah.
Through 10 games, this could be the best opponent, the second best opponent they've seen so far this year, as crazy as that may sound.
This where kind of a dichotomy comes in with these realignments. On one level, we see a great, not necessarily a rivalry, but a great game almost every week. We've had very few weeks where we have had less than 2 or 3 things that you 100%. And this week we have some great ones too. But there is some weirdness in these schedules because the conferences are so big. Texas, Who did they play? I mean, they played Georgia.
So, they lost to Georgia by 15.
Yeah.
Their conference games are Mississippi State.
Okay.
Bad. Oklahoma, not good.
No.
Vanderbilt, much better than expected.
Better than we thought.
And Florida last week, where Lagway was nowhere near 100%.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, that's, and then you look at Indiana, another team, they might have a home field. They might have a bye. I
They
mean,
could
if
get
they
the
beat
one
Ohio
seed
State,
still.
they could get, and who did they play in the conference? I mean, they played pretty much nobody.
And
So that's kind of the dichotomy of like with this consolidation. And in some ways, it's been very good. In other ways, it kind of obscures it. And I think Texas is one of those teams really going to have two really legit games. Now, Arkansas might jump up and beat them because they've been inconsistent, including being very good. But they're playing Georgia, who they lost to, and then they'll play A&M the final week. And that's really the only two marquee games for really one of the great programs in the NCAA.
And they've bet them this week, right, Chris? Let's face it. Down.
They walked us all the way down.
Now down to 12, and may continue. I mean, we'll find the threshold for Texas. I mean, it's whether it's 11 or less, I don't know, but there'll be some Texas support. But again, we need Texas going into the game. That's okay too, right? It's not an
I
awful
agree
thing,
with you,
but
Vinny.
Arkansas is tough out at home. It's a big game for them.
I'm just going to bring up real quick a
And
word.
Texas, can't afford another loss at this point.
Well,
either.
look,
That's it. Now you're getting into the part of the year where another loss is really going to be detrimental.
After what the committee did, and there's the current bracket and top 13 right now on your screen. Apologies for the smaller font, but we have to fit everything on the screen. What the committee did with Georgia last week, I think, can speak for Texas as well. The fact that Georgia fell out of the bracket after being the 3 seed, or the 2 seed, I should say, the week before, kind of shows me that, look, if you lose in the SEC, and especially if you're non-competitive, you're going to get moved out of there, which kind of makes me think A&M versus Texas the last week, assuming chalk holds in those matchups leading to that. That's an elimination game for both of those teams. Definitely for A&M.
Well,
not
look
so
at
much
our
for
screen,
Texas.
and I guess the public can't see this right now, but we have the SEC standings.
Yeah.
You got Tennessee, A&M,
Go ahead with
Texas,
it, Ryan.
Georgia, Ole Miss, Alabama. Well, there's 6. They ain't all making the playoffs.
No.
And every one of those teams would probably be favored almost no matter, I mean, certainly over Indiana, BYU,
Yes.
or whoever comes out of the Big 12.
Be favored over Miami and SMU too, right?
SMU or whoever. I mean, so
Notre Dame.
Keep running the list.
I can keep going. There you go.
I mean, and I mean any one of those teams, any one of those. So there's probably 2 of those teams that are going to be left out. And I'm at this point in time, I don't know who those 2 teams are. I really don't.
So what the committee is also saying here is those Miami, Oregon, BYU, and Texas are going to
win their
conference
Correct.
championship games.
Correct.
They're also telling SMU, if you don't win out, you're not going.
Right.
Yeah.
Clearly, right? I mean,
Well, I think
I mean that's where coaching is going to play. But coaches are going to read this and look into it too. They need to. I mean, so there's that part of it. But I tell you what, to Chris's point, Georgia's not even on there, and Georgia would be favored over a significant number of those teams in terms of a point spread.
all I'll say is if Georgia beats Tennessee, we'll get to that game later. Don't worry. They're probably going back in, and then who knows who's going out. Again, this is going to be a little chaotic over the last
Like I
few
said,
weeks.
those teams I named, 6 of them, 2 of them will not make it.
Yeah, I agree with you 100%. All right, quick hitting games here real quick, guys. Wake Forest and North Carolina for something a little bit different here. Yeah. UNC's 10.5 at home. Bettors did take this down from the initial number of 11.
The 11. Yeah, they took the 11. Not a big move, but little bit of play on the dog.
Not a lot going on here, really. No total movement at all.
Yeah, these games are just not a lot of total movement in these next few games, including Baylor host on the road in Morgantown to take on West Virginia. West Virginia last week. How about going on the road, and a pick 6 really swung that game.
Yeah.
But after that pick 6 by Sorsby, that West Virginia house, that game was all West Virginia. After that, winner of this game gets to a bowl. They would be win number 6 for either of them. Baylor, I mean, Aranda basically saving his job by getting to a bowl game for Neil Brown. A chance to win 7 games, 8 games for the second consecutive year, still on the table. Baylor's a small road favorite, 1.5. This has bounced a little bit on the favorites on the side, but Vinny, the total has not moved at all in this game.
And again, check on Green, right? West Virginia, check his status. I mean, right now, I think it's probably going to be a game time decision.
Right.
I'm not so sure. I'm not so sure they're not better off with the lefty at this point.
Maybe, but still, you want to know if
kind of like West
they're going
Virginia
to go
in
with
this
it.
spot. Why are they getting points at home?
I agree with you, Chris.
Green, sub came in and did a good job.
Yeah, that might be a decent money line play. The dog here.
Small plus price by even money price behind us. There's probably about $1.05.
Is that where we are? Even?
Yeah. 6 to 5 and even. And if you like the West Virginia, then why lay $1? Why lay $1.10 with 1.5? You like plus 1.5. You like them to win the game.
Yeah.
Take even money.
Now we go to the American Athletic. So Tulane got added to the top 25 by the committee this week.
Yeah.
So it's at least setting up for me where if Tulane and Army both win out to the AAC title or win out their AAC games, Army's a little more of a complex case because they play Notre Dame next week at Yankee Stadium, and that could be for some change. They're at least setting it up that if Boise doesn't win the Mountain West, that it could be very difficult for whoever wins if it's Colorado State, they have no chance. But if UNLV happens to upset Boise, might be tough for UNLV to hop Tulane or Army potentially. Tulane goes to Annapolis. This is a difficult game.
Yes, it is. Yeah.
7-point road favorites at Navy, who has sputtered a little bit over the last few weeks.
2 in a row, right?
Yeah, 2 straight losses, 50.5 the total on this one. This is a really interesting game in that 9 a.m. Pacific slate for us, Chris and Vinny.
Bear, our good friend Chris Felica, told me a couple weeks ago he thought of all the non-Power 5 teams, he liked Tulane the best.
Yeah.
I'm not sure I like them the best, but I got to tell you, they're definitely in the conversation. But this is going to be an interesting game. Navy has fallen off the last couple of weeks. A few weeks ago, we were talking about them and Army being undefeated in a possible AAC championship game. That's gone by the wayside. But still, can they jump up and win a game here? Yeah, I think they can. But like I said, don't sleep on Tulane. That's a pretty good team.
Late 6.5, sitting at 7, and Tulane knows they're all out. They're all in. They're committed, and I think the bettors realize that. And you look at current form, and I think that's you put all those factors together because Tulane knows to have a shot because they are not on the the bracket graphic that we showed.
Yeah.
No guarantees that they're going to, but the only way they can get there is to win everything they have left.
Tell you what, though, if you can get 7, I could see that being a play on Navy.
I'm with you.
Are we at 7
Betting
here?
the number, yeah.
I can see that being a play. And Navy's, listen, I've said this for my whole life. You watch any of these armed forces teams playing football, and you're glad they're the ones defending the country.
Absolutely.
Because these kids are going to play really hard for Navy. Doesn't matter what happened last week or 2 weeks ago. They're going to play hard. I think Tulane's going to have their hands full with this one.
If Navy wins, Army-Navy in that AAC title game is squarely back in play again.
Is that right?
Yeah, because the Navy, if Army has one conference game left, they'll be a home favorite against UTSA at the final week of the season. Navy, after this week against Tulane, will be a favorite in Greenville against ECU the final week of the regular season as well.
So they only have one conference loss? Is that right?
Navy has one conference loss. Notre Dame and then that ridiculous one against Rice.
Yeah.
They at least bounce back and beat South Florida. But again, Navy wins. They will be in the driver's seat in order to make an AAC title game. All right, let's go to, we'll talk about a team that's fallen off. The Pitt Panthers, who reality is set in for the Panthers after the great start, 2 straight losses, blasted by SMU. They lose at home as a touchdown favorite to Virginia a week ago. Does not look great for Eli Holstein right now, who still has not, as of today, hasn't been fully cleared yet.
That number moved up in the last half hour.
Yeah,
Yes.
so looking like it's going to be Yarnell getting the start for Pitt. So Clemson's now up to 12.5 in this game at Acrisure with a total of 53. Clemson played an abysmal first half last week against Vatech and then really put the clamps down and beat up on the Hokies in the second half to win and cover a week ago in Blacksburg.
I think it's a tough game for Pitt. You're wondering did they just lose it all during that SMU game? And my numbers came to 11, so I'm not crazy about either side here, but I can see Clemson just, Pitt seems to maybe have just peaked, and they were one of the lucky teams, I think you said, Jeff, when we go through some of that. They may have peaked there. And I have to respect the late move with the quarterback. Like I said, in the last half hour, we're at 12.5, although I saw a lot of 13 in the market. Yeah. And, I'm just willing to take a bet there. But I think this is pretty tough. By the way, a lot of my friends, and I've heard a lot of people on Twitter, I follow a lot of Pittsburgh people. 3 weeks ago, they're saying Pitt would be favored over Penn State.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, just keep telling yourself that, guys. That's just
in what sport?
Yeah, right. I'm not sure which one.
I'm not sure which one either. Not wrestling, not women's volleyball. No,
or women's volleyball.
Well, this is getting back towards our with this posted at 14 for games of the year.
Really,
almost there.
Holstein. So he's got a clear concussion protocol. It's not nothing wrong with his arm, nothing wrong with his legs. But one hit away, maybe he's not, so you could still say he's not 100%, right? If he plays at all. So definitely the play on Clemson here. We're gonna need Pitt in this game.
Yeah. Regression to the mean sometimes hits very quickly. Pitt, by the way, on those rankings was the 14th luckiest team in the country. With
surprised they're not higher.
I'm going to be honest with you. I thought they were going to be easily top.
Easily top. Last 2 weeks.
So yes. So I wonder how much how much they've fallen. Right. Where, if anything, they actually got unlucky against Virginia, and at SMU they just got drilled. Yeah, right? And what are you going to do? SMU is a really good football team, but boy. Not impossible that Pitt starts the season 7-0 and ends at 7-5. It is absolutely in play at this point for the Pitt Panthers. All right, let's go to Wrigley Field next. They're not playing Lakeside anymore. The last two Northwestern home games at Wrigley here, guys. And they welcome Ohio State. And, guys, it's been all about the Purple Cats in this game. From 31 to 28.5. Total really hasn't moved. But it is 44 now. It opened 44.5. But, Chris, they're all over the Purple Cats in this game at Wrigley Field.
I don't know what they're looking at. Although my numbers came to 31.
Okay, so not terrible.
So, 31, 28.5, that's kind of pretty close. But, but you're right, Jeff. It's been all Northwestern money, and one of the few times I'll be rooting for Ohio State this year.
Look ahead spot.
Ohio State hosts Indiana next week.
Right, and then got Michigan on the horizon. So I think that's clearly what folks are looking at here in this cracker box where they're going to play this game. So I think it's strictly a play on the fact that you're getting better than 4 touchdowns, and the fact that the two biggest games upcoming for Ohio State are on the horizon.
I have no idea how Northwestern's going to score in this game.
Oh yeah,
that's my that's my pride. 28.5 and a 44. That's all you really need to know. Yeah.
What's that figured about 7 or 8 points, something like that?
What is that? 30?
I did those this morning.
30, 36 and a half to 8.5, right? Something in that pocket. Yeah.
That's all you have to know about.
Yeah. So I don't know. I don't know how they're going to score in this game. And
if they score a touchdown, they'll probably get the dough in this game. There's a good chance.
35-7 makes a lot of sense to me.
Sure, yeah.
Could be. Could very easily be that. Again, Ohio State gets Indiana next week. Indiana is idle this week, so they get a week to get ready for the
interesting game for Indiana. And here's what some people were saying: if Indiana goes into Ohio State and beats them, great. He might be coaching Ohio State next year, though.
Ooh, I don't know about that, but it's not impossible, though.
That's what some guys are saying. They're laying out the scenario.
I will say, Indy will get when that game's up next week. I'm very interested to see where you guys open on that game.
I'll have to look
because there'll be a lot of factors that go into how the market bets that one next week with Indiana and Ohio State. All right, now we go to a battle of I-95 here, College Park, Maryland, in the Big Ten. The Terps host Rutgers, who last week, out of nowhere, were the correct side the whole way and upset Minnesota last week to get win 5 after it looked like Rutgers was on their way to losing basically out for the season. Now the Scarlet Knights just have to win 1 to get bowl eligible the rest of the way. For Maryland, they got to win 2 out of their last 3. And they probably have to win this game and win next week against Iowa to get to 6.
For sure.
So Terps are 5, total's 52. The current numbers feel about right to me, Chris.
I made the game 5.
Yeah.
Weird. I'm still getting used to Maryland not being in the ACC. So
actually, a quick update. Actually, this game just got hit on the total.
Oh, is that right?
So that's now up to 53.5, and a lot of the market moved to 54 as well. So someone across the board came in and hit this total over in the last 5 minutes.
Does that mean? Is it Monange?
That has to be that. I would imagine that Kyle Monangai is probably playing.
He's
if
probably
that's the
going to
case.
play if that's that tells you that. It's
I would agree on
not
that.
Not only questionable, but he's their leading scorer. So
they didn't have him. They didn't have him last week, and they.
No, I know.
Still stunned.
Right? Has he got 10 touchdowns?
He's pretty good. A Monangai guy. Yeah. All right, Chris. Purdue. We're back at it again. A little bit different this week.
Yeah.
Last week, by the way, I just want to bring this up. There are very few karma moments in college football. But Ryan Walters, the head coach of Purdue, kicking that field goal in the first quarter last week, instead of going for it as a 38-point underdog on 4th and goal from the 2.5-yard line, and then his kicker subsequently missing said field goal. Perfect. Exactly what it should have been. Now you're at Penn State. Penn State is on the road here at West Lafayette. Chris, they haven't touched Purdue this week because it's got to be two-way, I'd imagine. It's stuck at 29.
With this much action.
Yeah, so nothing.
So when I was going through the games, I should have eliminated this one because you
can't eliminate Purdue, Chris.
Can this week?
Yeah, I mean that's been a good conversation for the last 6 weeks. I think, Jeff, that we just automatically the wise guys bet Purdue. They've covered once. They might cover this game. What did I made the number 32 just because I'm just telling you right now. Be aware, Franklin likes to cover numbers. And if he's up, 27 late in the game, don't think that he might not.
He's punching that ball in. Maybe even kicking a field goal, Chris.
Yeah, I mean, keep that in your number. I mean, listen, the facts are the facts. We pay on the final score, and if he has a chance to run it up a little bit, he usually does it. So keep that in mind.
Bettors had enough of the Boilermakers.
Finally,
don't blame him on that. It should have been months ago on that, but there you go. 29 and 51.5. Penn State on the road at West Lafayette. All right, well, this is a matchup I did not, when going through this, I wasn't sure if it was going to make the board, but since Wazoo is kind of hanging around in the college football playoff rankings, where they're 19th, 18th, I should say, in the CFP rankings, where if they get enough carnage, maybe we get something very weird here.
Yeah.
They've only lost once. Now, granted, they got their behinds whipped by Boise State for their one loss this year. They're one of those big-time Genty games. They go to Albuquerque here against New Mexico, who just playing games in the 70s every single week at this point.
Every week.
Bronco Mendenhall just going all offense, no defense now. 10.5. There's some 11 in the market and 72 to total here on this one, Chris, with Wazoo on the road in Albuquerque against UNM.
Yeah, I was surprised when the rankings came out, but I mean, listen, we have our rankings, they have their rankings. I'm surprised they actually gave this team a little bit of credit. I mean, I made them a 13-point favorite in this game. Where'd we go? We opened 13. We were down to 10. We back up to 10.5.
Yeah, 10.5.
Yeah, so they laid the 10, but they had walked us all the way down. When you're in my position for as long as I've been, some of these teams you just have like a little affinity for. I've been rooting for Washington State most of my career, as they played the USCs, the UCLAs, the Oregons, and all that. So I would love to see some sort of crazy something that put them in the playoffs. That would be great. But in this game, it's going to be a high-scoring game. Points are probably relatively cheap. Like I said, I made it 13. We're down to 10.5. That would be no play for me. But this is probably going to be a pretty good game.
Well, we found the threshold, right, to get the favorite money at 10, and that's how we got back to 10.5. So, but if you need Wazoo going, that's not a bad thing, Chris, right? In this spot,
they've been good.
We just looked at listen, and again, people we don't always need underdogs. We don't always need favorites. We need a good split
Yeah.
And that's why the bigger the betting board, the better.
This is a fascinating game because I don't buy Wazoo as a legit. I don't even have them in my top 35 for reference.
I'd have to look.
Yeah, I really don't think they're all that good. I think they've just look at the teams they played. They have one good win. They beat Washington. Good win.
I wouldn't have them. I don't think about. I mean, I don't have my whole list, but they're not that highly rated.
Yeah. No, they're. I mean, they could go 11-1 with beating one good team the whole year. Like that's in play. I would love to take New Mexico, but their defense is just an abomination.
Oh yeah.
So I don't think I can do that. I like your 13 better, Chris, than the 10.5 that's sitting there at the moment. All right, the game of the day for me because we're doing it again, at least on my end. BYU hosts Kansas. This is a late game. Chris, you opened 3.5 with this one with BYU favored.
I moved it quickly on air.
You moved it on air to 3.
I moved it quickly because we talked about it.
On Monday, yes.
On Monday, we talked about it. I said, my numbers came to 4. And as soon as I looked at that, I said, man, would I love to take 4. And I opened 3.5. I think I was mostly a half point under the market. And then I saw it move down. I said, there's no way I want to go in here needing BYU. Oh, and now, I mean, I got pretty good two-way action.
Yeah, 2.5. It makes sense that there's good two-way action. BYU favored against 3 and again. This is undefeated BYU and 3-6 Kansas, and the undefeated team at home is less than a field goal, which. I'll go to my numbers. This is from, again, CFP Data. Bill Rajajowski on Twitter does a great job. As always, he was, again, the one who pointed out last year that Oklahoma State was by far the luckiest team in the country. Yeah. And
what happened?
That regressed pretty hard this year. They're not even. Are they even on the Are they even on the unlucky scales this year? I don't even think they're on the unlucky scales. They're just so bad.
From the fourth game on list of brutal.
Yeah, they're not even on it. Kansas is the third unluckiest team in America. They're 3-6. They're expected to have 5.6 wins based off the numbers. So they're negative 2.6 wins off expected. BYU, I'm amazed they're not the luckiest team in the country. They are the third luckiest team in the country, tied with Georgia Southern at 2.5 more wins than expected. So they're at least projected to be a reasonable team. 6.5 wins, still a bowl caliber team.
I thought they would have been.
Yeah, hey, look, their win total. I don't remember what your conference win total was.
Bad, whatever it was.
It went over everything already. Yeah. But BYU, by the way, you're going to love the luckiest team when we get to them in a little bit. It's one that even surprised me a little bit.
Okay.
But this is a principal bet for me. I've been going against BYU all year. Last week, I got there with the cover. According to Mark Harlan, the AD of Utah, I should have got there outright. But quite frankly, I agree with Mark Harlan. But that's a different
I don't know about discussion. Doing what he did, but he was
not happy.
I don't blame him. Yeah. And they should have had that win.
Should have won that game. But I'm doing it again. I'm going against BYU. I took 3. That was the best I was able to do. And I do a money line on Kansas to win this game outright as a small underdog on the road.
This is one of those. Bear was when they announced the rankings that up on our screen here. Anyway, Bear texted me, "What do you make BYU against Georgia? What do you make? That Georgia's out. Yeah. BYU's favored to be in. What do you make them against Ohio State? What do you make?" Bear's going nuts. I think it just bothers him. But I understand from Bear's point of view, but these are the rules. I mean, it was better than the old system, but that's just kind of the way it goes. But you're right. BYU is a very lucky team. 100% should have lost last week. Yeah. How that ref could make that call to determine a game of that much importance is just ridiculous. But anyway, I think 2.5, 3. I'm not giving this out as one of my plays, but I think if you saw a solid 3 flat without having to lay extra juice, that might not be a bad bet.
Yep. Taking 3, laying 2.5. I mean, I think the public comes in on BYU this game, and then when we get to the Utah game, you wonder how emotionally that's going to impact. Yeah. I think it impacts Utah more than BYU. Because BYU is in a playoff position, but those rivalry games when they're that close and it comes down to the last minute, then that's where again, that's not a letdown. It's an emotional spot, right? That can, an emotional letdown. And I think that could play anyway. And I think so. Again, here taking 3 with Kansas and laying 2.5. Public is going to bet BYU in this one.
We'll get to Utah. They're in Boulder against Colorado. We'll get to that one a little later. Just for me, again, at some point, it is almost, again, bang your head against the wall like you were against TCU 2 years ago. It didn't matter what you did. You were going to lose if you went against them 2 years ago. Just sort of the same thing with BYU.
The wise guys went against them every week.
Oh, every week. You kept losing every week, because TCU just found a way every week to win and cover until they got to the final and lost by 1,000. So, hey, look, it happens. Hey, look, with a small sample size, it can happen because just the nature of football at large.
I had this conversation with Ed Feng. I was on his podcast early in the year, and he's, we really have to that's why you have to look at every stat and try to formulate an opinion. So what are you going to do? Wait till week 16 to make your first bet? I mean, if that's what you're looking for, you're in the wrong business. That's why you got to analyze along the way, and all the tiny little things that go into it, whether it's turnovers, rushing yardage, pick your stat, analyze all of them.
So, Chris, we're now going to go to the luckiest team in the country.
Uh-oh.
3 wins above expected. The Syracuse Orange, who are already bowl eligible, have been the luckiest team in the country, according
I'm surprised.
Chris, on the surface, I was shocked too.
Yeah.
But then I did a little digging, and it made a lot of sense to me because they have 2 full games that they should have lost that they won. Virginia Tech 2 weeks ago, and then, of course, the game here against UNLV that if it wasn't for that ridiculous roughing the passer, they would have lost that game. Right. But, boy, I did not expect that. And that also includes the Pitt game where they were the most unlucky team in history, basically, with 3 pick sixes in one half. And they're still the luckiest team in the country. They go to Berkeley. Great road trip for a conference game here. Cal's 9.5. You guys are actually market low on this game. It's 10 across the board everywhere else right now on this.
I made the number 8. We opened the game 8. They laid it to us, and when they keep laying it, we'll move it. I hate to move on air unless there's something really within my, and I don't want to just sound like my opinion is so great. If there's some objective reasonings behind it, like that Kansas game, otherwise, let the bettors bet what they want. If somebody comes in and bets me, we'll move it. If they're not moving it, let's say, Circa, Westgate, in the Caribbean, the game moved up. I always tell guys, why did it move up? You know why it moved up? Because they got bet. Mm-hmm. We haven't gotten bet. When they bet us, we'll move it up too.
Cal Bears and over. That's what this game is, right? Up to 58 now, off of 55. So probably get to 10, and that'll probably be the threshold.
Cal wins one more game, they're bowl eligible. It's either coming one of these next 2 weeks because they get Stanford next week, and that game is in Berkeley, even though that is a big rivalry game.
It is.
Cardinal just not up to the task at this point.
But Cal was much better than I thought they'd be, too. They really have been, I think. I don't know about much better, but certainly better.
Mm-hmm. And they've had some pretty bad luck mixed in there, too, because they should have beat Miami, and we all know what happened. We all know what happened in that one. All right, let's keep it in the ACC. Boston College goes to SMU. Tumultuous week for the Eagles program. Yeah. Thomas Castellanos is gone. He benched into the transfer portal right away.
Is that right?
Yep.
Oh, yeah. Oh.
Right away. That was he announced it himself yesterday. So James, who came in relief last week, played very well in that win against Syracuse, will be the starter of the remaining 3 games of the year for BC. SMU, again, got taken off the scent with them early because of how ugly that loss was to BYU at the beginning of the year. And since then, they found themselves, and right now they are the only unbeaten team in conference play in the ACC. Mm-hmm. And they're 18-point favorites at home against BC here in this one.
If only somebody would have tipped me off early that they were pretty. Oh, that's right. It was Vinny told me in the offseason. He says, keep your eye on SMU as a pretty good team. Then, of course, they lost that first game. I said, Vinny's out of his mind. And then it kind of turned around, though. So my man, Vincenzi, he nailed them pretty good. Anybody can have one game. God only knows, especially first game out of the blocks. I still like Bill O'Brien as a coach. I think he's going to do some good things at BC. I kind of wish he never left Penn State, to be honest with you. But I made this game 21. So I think I'm kind of with the move. I think that I think we opened it a little bit cheap, and they moved it up, and we did find a threshold at 19. They took the 19, so we're at 18 right now. But I think in general the move was up, and I'm kind of in agreement with that.
Yeah, no secret that Mustangs are going to get the play here, going to get the support. Just a little sidebar. With Castellanos leaving, I mean, that's so he's going to go somewhere, right, and take somebody else's spot, there'll be a ripple effect.
Well, that's the transfer portal in a nutshell.
But that's what the transfer portal has done too, and that's why some of these. So again, just a little bit of a sidebar here,
please.
A little adversity in life. What are you going to do? You're just going to go. What happens when you get in the real world and you have a job? Well, this guy got the schedule I wanted, so I'm going to quit. Oh, good luck. You're gonna,
So I will. I
sound like a dad now, don't I?
I will say this: for wherever Castellanos goes, he's going to be the starter, and quite frankly, he might be one of the better names in the portal at this point.
No doubt.
Well, we got a long way to go there.
We got a long way to go. Well, don't worry. There will be plenty of movers. I'm not worried about that.
I bring it up because it speaks to the world in which we live in terms of college sports and the portal, and whether it's getting beat out. And his contention is probably, well, I got hurt, all right, and you shouldn't lose your starting position when you get hurt. That's old school. However, you got back, and you still got beat out.
Yeah.
And the fact is, between that and the cash that's involved in other situations, we're going to continue to see this.
Well, let's go to the biggest game of the week now, guys. Let's go to the biggest game of the week. The Georgia Bulldogs, who are, hey, look, you lose, you're done. See you later.
They're out right now.
They're out right now.
Yeah.
You lose, you're definitely finished if you're the Georgia Bulldogs here, which would be quite the story when we do the autopsy for this 2024 season if Georgia just flat out misses the playoff completely.
Yeah.
And they welcome Tennessee, and we still don't know about Nico Magliulo yet. We still don't know. The last note is that he's still in concussion protocol, but this game will kick off around 7:40 Eastern time in Athens. We will probably not know until 7:33 about Magliulo and if he's able to go. This is 9.5. Saw some 10 earlier in the week.
You're up those eyes 11.
Up as 11. I'll say this: if Magliulo plays, I think Tennessee wins the game outright.
Whoa. Okay.
I'm completely opposite of what I would normally be in this sort of spot. The Georgia Bulldogs, other than that game against Texas, where that was their defense, that was not Carson Beck, because Beck was bad in that game also.
Yeah, he's had a disappointing
year.
He's
had a brutal year. He's probably even going to have to come back because he was going to be a top 10 pick.
Top 10? He was going to be number
one.
He
might even be number one.
Like.
Yeah, he's probably going to have to come back next year because of how bad of a year he's had altogether. But there's something missing from this Georgia team that has been there during
wide
this
receivers and tight ends.
Forget that though.
No, you can't because they're all gone.
But the defense,
and they didn't recruit. They didn't come back.
But the defensive side of the ball too. I know they had a great effort against Texas, but last week in a game where the conditions stunk. And historically speaking for Georgia, they will out-physical you regardless. They got pushed around the whole game by Ole Miss. And for Tennessee, look, Tennessee's defensive line, Vinny, we've talked about how good Ole Miss's D-line is. Tennessee's D-line is right up there.
They're good.
When Ole Miss's D-line. And if Tennessee's O-line holds up and Magliulo doesn't turn the ball over, assuming he plays, Tennessee is more than live to win this game at plus 310. I know it's a difficult place to play, but boy, I think they're very much alive for me.
And to add to Georgia's situation, no Etienne.
Yeah, no Etienne. He's already out.
He's already out. We know that for a fact.
So down weapons again.
I made this number 8.
Yeah.
So I mean, I thought 11. Boy, that's getting really high. Yeah, you're right though, Jeff. There's been a flaw with Georgia this year. Now, Vinny says it's the receivers. He probably has a point.
Yeah.
I think it might be more than that, though. Something psychological. They just haven't been clicking this year. So I made it 8. If it gets up high, 10 or above, I think that's probably a take if you're out there playing. I'm not sure I would. It's cutting it pretty close. But I think there's a lot of 10s still in the market. Jeff, you have the numbers in front of you. Was it 10s there still?
It's almost exclusively 9.5.
Yeah, okay.
There's 110 minus 125 out there. So,
Yeah, well, what time's that game tomorrow?
7:30 Eastern, 4:30 out here.
Yeah, we got a lot of time. Yeah, I think you'll see a 10 flash here or there.
Don't blink.
Yeah, if you see it, it might be worth a play to take the 10.
Let's go. I'm stealing Vinny's lines. Just the way it is at this point. All right, let's go to what, again, no more SEC East, but what was another SEC East matchup, the Battle of the Columbias. Missouri goes to South Carolina. Brady Cook is listed as doubtful. I think that's a little more accurate than the doubtful that he was listed as against Alabama a few weeks ago. This is 13.5 with the Gamecocks. We even saw, this one's bounced all over the place.
As low as 12, as high as 14.
Yeah, so I think we'll see if it's no Cook. Guys, I think this goes through 14 if Cook is officially ruled out. And I'll go to both of you on this one because you both had on Monday when we were in here. I asked you where South Carolina was. You both had him at number 10 at the beginning of the week in your power rankings.
I had him number 10. I mean, again, the whole season is so short. You have to make adjustments quickly. Now, you can over-adjust too, obviously. But I think you look at the recency with this South Carolina team, and they have really come around. Now, early in the year, I think they were pretty much, a mid SEC team. And even if you look at the standings, they're still kind of in that middle range. But the way they're playing lately, I think they're playing very, very well. I made this number 16, and I knew even at that time it was probably a little too high. When we opened at 14, I believe, or 14.5. We opened 14. And I thought that was a good opening number, although I favored the favorite at that point in time. But we've been all over the place here. 13.5 for me would not be a play, but if you ever see a 12 again, which I doubt you're going to see, I think it from here goes nothing but up. But I would like South Carolina in this spot.
Coach Beamer's got this team playing not only good but dangerous. And if you go back to the playoff bracket, there's not one of those teams that want to face this team right now. Going into the last few weeks. They're a dangerous out right now.
We talked about this on Monday a little bit, Chris. South Carolina's schedule in the conference was insane.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, who did they play?
So they played at Kentucky, won by 25.
Okay.
They hosted LSU. Remember, they had a big lead in that game, and then they blew it at the end. They lost by 3. They hosted Ole Miss. Ole Miss beat them up. Whatever. Okay. Nothing wrong with that.
But so far, all legit teams.
Oh, I don't worry.
Those are 3 good. Because Kentucky was favored, and they were playing very well.
They were exactly right.
They lost at Alabama by 2.
Correct. I'd say a legit team.
Okay. This, I think, is the worst team on their schedule, and that says something about their schedule. A win against Oklahoma in Norman, they won by 26. If Oklahoma is the worst team you played in conference, that means your schedule is ridiculous. Sorry, Sean. Not really, though. Texas they beat.
Go get a rib, Sean. Don't worry about it.
They beat Texas A&M. That's another legitimate top 20 team. They beat up Vanderbilt last week. Good team.
No kidding. Yeah.
And then Missouri's their last conference game.
Yeah.
I mentioned, I don't think I mentioned a team outside the top 40 in the entire country when you're going through at the end of it.
We talked about Texas had 2 legit games. Yeah. You're just giving me like 6. I was going to say 6, but 8's probably closer.
Yeah. Oh, and by the way, they have to play Clemson the last week of the season. So,
and I told you, at this point, if they teed off today, I'd make South Carolina a slight favorite. I don't care where it's at.
I would be so disappointed with that because I've been preparing for weeks. Oh, I'm going to get a plus price with South Carolina against Clemson. And if I don't get it, whatever.
Where's that game?
That's at Clemson.
It's at Clemson.
I think South Carolina is going to win regardless of where that game is.
I agree with you.
That's a close game.
Yeah.
It's probably going to be like 2 either way.
Yeah, 2 Clemson probably by the time we get there.
I would say
Clemson's going to beat Pitt by a lot this week.
1 to 2. Yeah. You guys are at home. But South Carolina's got a higher on a neutral.
Higher
South
ranking.
Carolina would be favored. Yeah. So probably about 1.5, 2.
Yeah. All right, let's go to the Big 12. Iowa State, boy, their season's fallen apart the last 2 weeks. Look like they could be going to a college football playoff. No, they lose to Texas Tech. Then they get really, I know it was only a 9-point loss, but that game was really not competitive against Kansas a week ago in a game that I thought was going to play as an Iowa State home game, honestly. 7.5 against the Bearcats. And again, this is Iowa State. Ranked 14th of the luck boxes so far this year, Chris.
Oh, really?
They were 14th. So, again, I don't know what to do with this game. I don't really think much of either of these teams with 7.5.
I'd be on Iowa State or nothing here. You know, I mean, who's your boy from Cincinnati?
Oh, Satterfield,
That's
my guy.
I mean, I'd be on Iowa State or pass here.
Yeah, I agree
think
with
the
you,
number
Chris.
got a little too low.
They took, 9 and 8.5? Chris,
Yeah,
I
where
think.
am I at here?
8, yeah.
Yeah, 7.5 now.
What are we down to? 7.5 this game. Yeah,
So,
I mean,
you might see 7.
you
and
might
then
see
probably
7. 7 would be a lay, I think. You know.
Let's go to South Bend next. So, Notre Dame, look, we got to give Notre Dame credit. Since the disaster against Northern Illinois, they've handled their business.
Yeah.
They've really, realistically speaking, really only played one competitive game. They've really decimated everything in front of them. Only the Louisville game was close, and I think we've learned that Louisville's a pretty darn good football team.
Yeah,
score.
And now to get Virginia. So Virginia upset Pitt last week. Now on the road here, 23 to 22.5 in this game. Total's gone up a point, 50.5 to 51.5.
Yeah, I made it 25, so it's right there. You know, it's funny. I was having a conversation with my cousin Zach, very, very sharp handicapper. And he was telling me, he says, you know, you just look at that Northern Illinois game. It makes no sense whatsoever. Because Northern Illinois isn't really that good. You know, if they played one of the top-level MAC teams and lost, okay, crazy things happen in sports. We know that. But this is a really crazy thing that happened for Northern Illinois. And I watched that game. That was a big game for us. And, I mean, they beat them.
Yeah.
I mean, it wasn't like some crazy thing that happened at the end of the game. No, they beat Notre Dame. Maybe psychologically to them that made their season, and they've fallen off since then because they're not a very good team. But how Notre Dame lost to them, I'll never know. But Jeff, you're right; they really have righted the ship, and this is a very good team. They're going to get in the playoff, and they're going to be a tough out.
I'll tell you how crazy that game is. The number on that game was what? You remember? Notre Dame.
Well, it was 28, right?
Yeah.
Something like that.
They'd be a bigger favorite today.
Jeez.
You know what? I think you're right.
I'm just telling you.
I agree with you, Vinny. Even though I will tell you,
4 touchdown favorite. They go down straight up. I'm telling you now, they're a bigger favorite.
you want to actually real fun real quick? Guess who shows up on the unlucky list this year, even with that win? Northern Illinois.
Northern Illinois. Chrissy, what?
Jesus, guy. Yeah. Sorry. Get me off that list. Yeah, they'd be a bigger favorite now. I have Notre Dame would be like 32 on a neutral.
Wow.
I had 31. So
There you go.
31?
Yeah.
Okay. We're
I said there.
close.
That's why. I mean, that's how crazy that. So Zach's right.
Wow. Wow. All right. Well,
There you go, buddy.
You're right. That's unbelievable.
Adjustments.
Yeah.
That's crazy. Notre Dame, Army next week, and then USC. If they win the last 3, you know, and I think Notre Dame. If they win their last 3, Notre Dame's hosting a playoff game.
Oh, sure.
Well,
They're hosting it.
I do want to see one of them Southern teams go up to Notre Dame in late December.
I'll tell you, Chris, right now, you're getting your dream right now. Even though Ole Miss going to Penn State.
That's not bad.
And even though, again, no one expected this, Alabama going to Bloomington, Indiana at the moment.
Who had that at the beginning of the year?
that's
You had
insane.
that. Even Damashek would not have that. Dave, you listening?
My God, that's crazy. Indiana still. All right, Colorado and Utah's up next, guys. Buffs 10.5-point favorites against the Utes. I'll just go back to what Vinny said earlier. Just the emotional letdown after what happened to Utah last week. This has been a toddler, 10, 10.5, 11, 11.5, 11. Now back at that 10.5. I don't know how much Utah has left in the tank after that. That felt like you're starting your third quarterback. You look good for a half, then they did nothing on offense.
Against your biggest
rival
right?
who you haven't played in 3 years on top of it. But boy, this kind of feels like this could be a scenario where Utah has no gas left and Colorado just boat races them. Wouldn't shock me one bit.
My numbers came to 11.
Yeah.
But even as I made the 11, I says, geez. And I think, if memory serves, this was 10 everywhere in the market.
Yeah.
I opened at 10.5.
Correct.
So look, for everything we just said, Colorado seems like the right side in this game. And I don't know, Deion Sanders, I know he could be kind of a lightning rod, and he's not my favorite guy. His whole act, that's just not my style. But you have to give credit where it's due. This guy has done one hell of a job.
Amazing job.
And
this
he
year.
might be in the NFL next year, or he might, who knows, might be somewhere else. But he has done a fantastic job twice now. Twice.
Yeah, Jackson State, too.
Jackson State. He did a terrific job there. And, this guy gets results. Like I said, my favorite guy, not even close. But he does win and get results. And I think he wins this game regardless of that I made the number right there.
I was just getting ready to say this game is going to go up, and it just did. There's going to be support for Colorado
Is that right?
in this game. Yeah, it just went to 11, and I don't think that's going to stop.
There's even a 12 now
and
as well.
And Chris's point, too, credit where it's due, particularly along the line of scrimmage and opposite of what a year ago. Right? Remember how they started so well last year, and they were they lose 7 in a row. They went 4-8. A long losing streak, and so look, the thing about it is they're in a position right now they're playing for something. They're playing to get into that bracket. So I think there'll be a lot of support for Colorado in this game.
Some shops have Colorado as the favorite to win the Big 12 right now.
Well,
I can't really argue with it.
I think that's money too, and that's betting interest as well.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
All right, this was a big. This used to be one of the whenever this game popped up, it'd be like, oh, this is the game of the day, and it's kind of an afterthought. With Florida hosting LSU again, LSU season safe to say kaput after last week, where Jalen Milroe just dominated them for a whole 60.
They really boat raced them. I did not expect that.
No, I didn't. I thought LSU was going to win the game. Not even close. Florida, again, it all depends on what are we getting out of DJ Lagway. Again, he didn't look healthy last week against Texas. 3.5 right now with LSU in the swamp against the Gators.
I made this game pick them, with a healthy quarterback anyway. Just LSU's defense is so bad. They've had they got exposed last week. They've been exposed about 7 or 8 times during the course of this year.
Yeah.
They just have a terrible, terrible defense. They can't put up some numbers and score, though, no doubt about that. But I think this number, anything above 3, I'd have to take a long look at Florida in this game.
Well, what looks like they're taking the 4.5, right, and then laying the 4. So I think that'll continue now down to 3.5. So they took
took 4.5 and 4, right?
4. So I mean. Points
that total feels low, but it is.
It is going up. It's up to 56. So they're going to bet it. They're going to keep betting it over.
All right, let's go to Manhattan, Kansas. Not Manhattan, Vinny, not the city. We'll go to the Little Apple here.
Okay.
K-State hosting Arizona State. Open 8.5 now 7.5 in this game. 51 to total. Kansas State needs help in the Big 12 race, but they're still alive here, and also Arizona State is still alive here at 4-2. Amazingly, a lot of the conference is sitting at 4-2. I think this number, I like the 7.5 more so than the opener, but again, you're kind of splitting hairs at that point in between that range between 7 and 10.
I made the number 8.
Yeah,
so I mean, it's kind of right there. I'm not sure who, at this point in time. I probably need a favorite a little bit, but whatever. I should be okay here.
I think they laid it early in the week.
They did.
They did
went up to 9, and so now down the ladder. So
I'm looking for reasons to bet Arizona State, but I don't know. A tough place to play. You got a team that if you're looking at the weather. Now, it looks like they're going to get lucky because it's going to be 61 degrees at kick, which all you could ask for. You could have look mid-November in Manhattan, Kansas. You could have got you could have got some real ugly stuff.
It'd be 10 below easily.
Yeah, you could have easily gotten an ice ball. Exactly. Could have also gotten the foot of snow. So I do not miss that weather, guys. The Midwest. Don't miss that one bit. Speaking of the Midwest, Illinois hosting Michigan State in the Big Ten. Open 3. Now Illinois 2.5, total 48. Kind of, again, just a game where both of these teams have been better than I thought they were going to be. And for Michigan State, you kind of got to find a way in this game if you want to make sure you're not sweating bowl eligibility in those final 2 home games against Purdue and Rutgers.
Michigan State is definitely better than I thought they would be.
Yeah.
I had them penciled in as being pretty bad, and they are bad, but they're not real bad. They took the 3 off me. I'm trying to look. I made the game 3, so no real preference for me either way in this game.
I think Childs, he left the last game, right?
Yeah.
So if he plays, I don't know if he's 100%, right? I think it's just throwing arm. So you want to check on that, or you just wait or pass, and wait for the end game. So, but it looks like Illinois peaked with that win at Nebraska.
I would agree. 100% agree with that. It has not gone well for Nebraska, who we'll get right now.
Yeah.
Changing play callers to Dana Holgerson calling plays the rest of the year for Nebraska. Yeah. I will be honest with you, did not realize he was on their staff until they said that. They'll go to L.A. to take on USC, who has also been a monster disappointment this year. Yeah. UNLV transfer Jaden Mayava will get the start for USC. 7.5 in this one with a total of 52. It's just one of those games. I know they're betting Nebraska, but for me, this is just one of those games where you toss your hands up and say, all right, whatever. If you told me USC wins by 3 touchdowns, yeah, I could see it. You tell me Nebraska wins outright, yeah, I could see it. Anything's in play with this game.
Well, we opened at 9.5. The first bet came in, a guy bought it up to 10.
Okay.
Looking back, I guess it's not a bad buy, although I'm not crazy about buying points in almost any time in college, but that one doesn't look too bad. So it took, technically 9.5, I guess, and then 9, 8.5, 8. So we're down pretty low on this game. Still 7.5. I made it 10. I was kind of okay with the opening number. I think it's getting a little bit low here. But again, I could see either way. Both teams just horribly disappointing. I'd hate to have my money. What time does this game go?
1 o'clock.
Oh, it's a 1 o'clock.
Yeah,
it's
not too late.
I'd hate to finish the day with losing this game would just kill my sleep. But middle of the day, who knows? But I like the favorite a little bit, but 7.5, that's just going to scare you.
Dog and over. That's what they're betting. Totals up to 52, a couple of points.
Yeah.
And, 2-point move to the dog, as Chris said.
I mean, for USC, what a mess this season has turned into. 4-5.
Yeah.
Really?
Did their quarterback go in the portal?
Moss is still listed on the roster, so okay. I don't know if he's in the portal.
He looks like a portal kind of guy.
I would imagine he's going to end up in the portal. But if you're USC, if you lose this game, you're not going. You're going 4-8. More likely than not.
Exact opposite of what 2 years ago, right? When Riley went there, he had people fighting to go there, right? Especially skill position players.
Absolutely.
Caleb Williams' hamstring injury against Utah in the Pac-12 title game 2 years ago really just changed the operation completely for that program. They were on it. Caleb Williams stays healthy in that game. They're in the college football playoff.
Yes.
I mean, just think of how different everything would have been for USC. All right, Big Ten matchup in Madison. This is, realistically speaking, Oregon. Well, they only have 2 games left in the regular season. This is the bigger test of the 2 remaining games since they get Washington at Autzen, and we already discussed Washington's disastrous road record. 13.5 in this game with the Ducks laying it at Camp Randall. This is a night game at Camp Randall. They took the 14.
They did.
So, look, not the easiest of spots here for Oregon as the number 1 team in the country.
What's Wisconsin's record at home?
So Wisconsin, of course, got blasted at home by Alabama earlier this year.
All right.
They lost to Penn State by 2 touchdowns.
Okay.
Their home wins this year are Western Michigan, South Dakota, and Purdue.
Okay. They used to be among my highest rated home field advantages. I lowered them a point. I'm not sure I lowered them enough. I like Oregon in this game.
Okay.
I think Wisconsin and that home field at night, I think it's overrated. And Oregon, I don't have Oregon number 1. I don't think Vinny does either. No. I mean, so the committee might, and I understand that, from their point of view, probably right. But from my point of view, it's not. But I do think Oregon's been waiting to explode. This could be an explosion game for me. I made this number 16, so it's not that much higher. But even when I made the number 16, I said, you know what? I think that Wisconsin home field is going to be exposed today. And I like Oregon in this game.
Oregon's firing on all cylinders right now, right? The first month of the season, not so, but they've found themselves offensively and defensively. Yeah, I think this number probably goes back up. You might see 2 touchdowns again.
It's a late game too, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's a 4:30 game Pacific. So.
And then the last college game for us to discuss here: UNLV hosting San Diego State. Guys are at 21. The rest of the market's at 21 and a hook right now for this game, just down the road from us at Allegiant Stadium.
Well, they took 21 off me.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, I try to go with my business. They laid back 20 and went back to 21. You know, but you know, I don't know. I made the number 21, so I have no real opinion here.
Rebels alive, I guess. You know, still fighting.
Still need some help, but
yeah.
Still alive. 21-point favorites at home right now. Shout out to the chat. B-Flow's in there. Giovanni, Agent 87. Roger Long. Vince. Ryan. Not Sean. Not in there right now. We expect not Sean to be in there at some point in the chat as well. All right, we take a quick break right now. When we get back, Jimmy Vacarro will join us when we get back here on Sports by the Book Football Frenzy.
If you're celebrating a special occasion or just love fine dining, you're in the right place. Come experience the crown jewel of South Point restaurants, Michael's Gourmet Room.
Welcome.
With over 600 different types of wines and magnificent dishes prepared tableside, you'll revel in the rich classic Vegas decor and the best black tie service in the world. This intimate gourmet room has earned accolades galore. Come to Michael's Gourmet Room for an unforgettable dining experience. Another famous restaurant is the Silverado Steakhouse, where you'll find the charm and service that discerning patrons require. From top quality steaks and chops to fresh seafood and desserts, you'll love the award-winning wine list and menu at Silverado Steakhouse. Steak lovers have even more options with primarily prime rib. Catering to hearty appetites, the menu features a variety of flavorful prime rib cuts, dry-aged to ensure tenderness, and then seasoned and slowly roasted. Although prime rib is our specialty, it's not the only thing on the menu. There's something for everyone. And if you're craving a taste of Italy, come experience delicious Italian cuisine and the attentive service at Don Vito's. Our culinary team starts with the freshest ingredients and transforms them into traditional favorites. And don't forget Italian desserts. Don Vito's. Savor the taste of Italy. Finally, if sushi is more your style, join us at the popular Zenshin Asian restaurant and sushi bar, where we're serving up the freshest sashimi, nigiri, and sushi rolls. And beyond the sushi, an exciting contemporary Asian cuisine menu. Plus a variety of specialty drinks, Japanese and domestic beer, wine, and sake. Balance your hunger with Zenshin.
Welcome back in Sports by the Book Football Frenzy. I can't do that to me before we go back on, Vinny.
Well, we have enough. I had enough numbers in my head. Camera 2.
The one in the middle.
What is?
The one in the middle. That's all I need to say. Middle camera moving
Okay,
forward.
thank you.
Yeah. Vinny Magliuo is here. Chris Andrews is here. Now to my left, our good friend Jimmy Vacarro.
Well, how you doing, buddy? You do me a favor. I know you can do this
Okay.
because I forgot. Who won the election last week?
Oh, well, Trump won the election last week.
Did Trump win?
Yeah.
Big margin?
Whatever. It was what he needed.
Did you vote?
Of course I voted. I'm not telling you who I voted for. There's no chance of that. But
Keep that to yourself.
I did vote. And again, you have said plenty of times that if election betting was ever legalized here, it would be the biggest event of all time.
No, not even close.
Yeah.
Not even close. All right, let's get something serious. And like for the first time, I've been a little serious because what we're having today, obviously, is like something we never would have thought of a few years ago. We have, obviously, 2 people fighting tonight, and we got one that no one ever heard of, Jake Paul. And what I did find out about him, just reading some stuff, he's 10-1. That's his record. But he's fought guys like me and you, Chris. It's not like, he has a big fighter on his hand. But I'll tell you what, and naturally, Tyson is what he is. He is still that mean guy with that look and using the senses that no one else can understand what he's talking about. This is not a bad matchup. Obviously, we know like it isn't the biggest matchups we've ever seen. But when you look at this one, you say to yourself, you can actually look at this and probably decide after reading it that you like both sides in this fight. So in other words, there'll be a lot of people who are going to take the favorite. Now the dog we're going to get money because in a situation like this, we always know who gets the money. So and Chris, the book has been really just a great, just like for the past couple hours. So here we are, and now we're at 260, 220, I believe. That's what it is right now.
Last I saw, yeah.
And we're going to get a big rush at 5:30, 6 o'clock. So when you're here and you see something like that, you can almost say that we can do this again. I would love just for the idea of seeing Tyson again. What if he wins? What a rematch is going to be. But who would be a fight? You talk about just an event. We're not talking about skill factor, how good, how bad, or whatever. But I think if this goes the way that a lot of people want it to go and Tyson wins, we'll need that big stadium in Texas to show these fights. So you guys, am I on the right or wrong track with this?
You're on the right track. Yeah, we're doing a ton of business.
Yeah.
I think almost no matter who wins this fight, unless it's an embarrassment, which, I don't see. I mean, it could happen, but I think we're going to have a rematch. This just generated so much interest.
I wonder what would lead to a rematch. What result would need to be the case? I think the result is that Paul wins by decision.
That should be close. That's the go.
That would be my guess. By the way, Jimmy, Jake Paul, YouTube star.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
So 8 rounds, 2-minute rounds, 14-ounce gloves. Okay, so equalizers for Tyson in particular.
Yeah, a lot of the rules have kind of favored Tyson.
Yeah. I would say for it to get to a rematch, I think Jeff's right. If it goes the distance, and it goes to the cards, it's not going to be Mayweather-McGregor. But then again, that was here. If this fight was here, as busy as we are and the interest in it, it would be even greater. Yeah. It would be 30 or 40% more. Wow. Typically 25%. You start at 25%, but this one, because it's Tyson in particular, I think it would. So selfishly, I really wish it was here. To be honest.
Are you kidding?
Right?
I mean, yeah. Geez.
I think the worst decision would be if Tyson got knocked out.
Say it again.
I think if Tyson gets knocked out, it's all done with. There's nothing going to happen.
Especially if it's early. Yeah. And again,
we told you.
Yeah. And there's health concerns on Tyson's end. This fight already got postponed because of it.
50.
He's 58 years old. Paul's 26, right, Ryan? 26 on Paul. Mm-hmm. All right, Jerry, we'll have to look that one up. But it's. I don't know. I said this earlier on Frank's show. I think this whole fight is basically WWE.
Look at the betting sheet.
No, people want to bet it. I can't argue with it. If you want,
like crazy.
You got a rounds prop as well.
Look,
will it go to the distance? Well, yes or no? Either fighter by knockout or decision. And, pick the round to win it. But you did a good job, Chris.
I can't argue with what the bettors are betting. I'm just telling you, I'm not betting it.
From a business standpoint.
Vinny, from a business standpoint, this is like Hearns and Hagler.
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah, from a business. I like the fight of it. By the way, somebody posted the round one. Find that on Twitter right now.
That's still one of the best ones ever.
I should probably go retweet that.
Oh, Hearns Hagler?
The best round you'll probably ever see in your life. Yeah. The guy posted, he says, "Watch, if you haven't seen this, this might change your life."
Yeah.
If you see
Great.
It. Let me see what
Vinny, what was the fight that you ended up getting stuck under the canvas with?
Oh, that was Leonard.
That was the draw, right?
Leonard Hearns 2, June of 97. No, it was 99. Yeah, it was June of that year. It was 8 years. Yeah, so they fought first in 81 at Caesars. And then it took another, so it was 8 years later. It was that escape underneath the ring apron. Ridiculous.
I'll tell you what I think the best punch ever in a boxing match while we were in Las Vegas. No, who'd you say?
Against Holmes.
Ernie Shavers.
Ernie Shavers.
From Niles, Ohio.
Can't believe he got up.
He hit him so hard you heard the sound
I
when
was
we
at
were falling.
Caesars. I think that was in the pavilion, if I'm not mistaken.
what?
It might have been in the pavilion, the Caesars pavilion.
How Holmes got up is incredible.
I know.
We come back to win the fight.
Yeah, you're right. So I would
I thought you were
suggest.
going to say the George Foreman, Michael, when he knocked out Michael Moore.
How about Tyson when he knocked out Spinks?
Knocked him through the ropes.
Yeah, with a body blow.
Yeah, and he just bent him right over. Yeah, obviously, we're talking here with three people who've been involved in the boxing for years and years and years. Now, the UFC and Dana White is a genius because obviously UFC is big, but to me, it's just, I just can't really get into it like I once did with the fight. So here it is. And like I said, what more are you going to ask for? Yeah, the Tyson thing is going to be pretty good. Now, and Chris, what do you say? 80-20 ticket counts, 80 on Tyson, 20 on the other side?
I don't know if I give him 20. It's probably more than that.
Oh, wow.
Everybody's rooting for Tyson. I mean, we'll be rooting for Paul once again.
Yeah, you're probably right. That's whatever.
I think it was 89, actually. What did I say? 90, it was 89.
So 89 was
Yeah,
that
it was
for
8
you?
years later. Yeah.
Wow. All right, guys. It's been a lot of fun. And we'll be standing here next week telling everybody out there how smart we are and how we figured the thing out. And we knew all along this was going to happen. And then some guys going to say, Jimmy, pull the plug. See,
Jimmy, you know better. Is there one thing? You're either smart or you got unlucky. That's what, that's the only two outcomes.
well, you saw what happened. You knew that it wasn't my fault. $10 or $80 and go home.
Jimmy Vacarro, everyone. I love it. Love it every week. Oh, man. Well, if you want to watch the Tyson-Paul matchup tonight at the South Point,
Come on here.
come on
Yeah,
down.
come on. Get here early.
Get here early. 2 screens. Find us. Get
The
your
hot
bets in.
dog. Get your hot dog.
Get your hot dog. Get your bets in early. You can also get your pastrami sandwich from.
That's not bad either.
That's pretty good too, as well.
Chris, are your ribs still gonna be around?
Chris's ribs
was gonna
end
say,
up making
That's
it.
for the crew.
Yeah,
That's for the crew.
Yeah, they're delicious.
Chris
by the way.
Andrews' rib
Sean, how
shack.
were they? Oh, give me the chef's kiss. Okay.
They were delicious. They were delicious.
Sean, you recover from that hot barbecue sauce yet? Okay.
All right, to the NFL this week, guys. So, we don't have to talk about the Giants this week. That's not a bad thing. But we do lead off with the Chicago Bears hosting the Green Bay Packers. I don't know why I did this to Ryan McCormick earlier in the week, but I went through what the Packers have done to the Bears over the last decade,
You're a
basically.
cruel,
It was me,
man.
Chris. It was very mean of me.
Oh.
I'm not doing it again. Don't worry. But the Packers have owned the Bears ever since Aaron Rodgers took over a quarterback in 2008. Just own them. The Bears have not beat them in this decade yet. And here you are with the Bears at arguably the lowest point, not arguably, the lowest point they've been this year. And it's harder to get lower on offense than they've been. Changing coordinators. Yeah, you fire Shane Waldron, but now you have Thomas Brown who call plays for Bryce Young as your play caller now. Yeah, that's going to solve things. Packers are 5 on the road off their bye week at Soldier Field with a total of 40.5, Chris.
I made this number 5.5.
Okay.
But then when I saw it open 6.5, I said, you know what? They might have a point here because the Bears have really gone downhill rather quickly. They made coaching changes this week. It just looks bad for them. But, so I opened at 6.5. Well, they took the 6.5. They took the 6. Now, they laid back some 5.5. Went to 6. They took it again. So then I went to 5. And that's kind of where we are right now. So, I mean, a lot of sharp money on the dog in this one. And even though my numbers kind of correspond to that, I'm not sure that's the right way to go.
Caleb Williams has been sacked more times in the last 3 weeks than a lot of quarterbacks have the entire season. There's more wrong with this Bears team than offensive play calling. And if you look at, I'm a big believer in, if you look at the vibe of a team, how do you pick up on the vibe of a team if you're not with the team? Watch some replays. I'm not suggesting people should watch every game, watch the game film. But if you watch it, look at highlights and watch what's happening in these games. You got players walking off the field before the whistle you've got just a complete disconnect between the players and the coaching staff. I think there's a disconnect with the coaching staff amongst the coaches. So I know this number is down because money is shown for the Bears. I suspect there'll be Packer money coming, especially they're coming off their bye. And if there's not, and we need the Packers going into this game, given the vibe of the Bears, then that's just fine.
I kind of wish this was actually a better teaser number and not have to go through zero. Maybe just money line parlay with Green Bay. I have just owned the Bears. And for Chicago, Ryan, go ahead and throw it up. This schedule is a disaster for the Bears the rest of the way. Minnesota at home next week. Then the 3-game road trip of Detroit, San Francisco, Minnesota. Good luck on those 3. Lions, Seahawks at the Packers. Might be hard to find a win in there. That's how bad it could get for Chicago the rest of the way off of a game last week that was 19-3 loss to New England, where New England had more sacks last week than they had in the entire season put together going into that game. Just bad all the way around.
The wise guys are all over the dog here.
Yeah. Well, Green Bay could win this game by a field goal. Yeah. More than possible, for sure, especially when it's north of a field goal right now. All right. Now for a game that I crossed off immediately, Chris. So I'm curious to see what the bettors are doing with this one. Cleveland and New Orleans. Hey, it's a Jameis Winston revenge game, right? Jameis starting for Cleveland this week. Derek Carr did not become the losingest quarterback through 11 seasons yet. He needs to lose one more in order to do that, Chris.
I think he's got it in him.
He got it in him. Saints did win last week, the week after firing the coach, so they get the post-coach bump, firing bump. Saints won, down from 2, total 43.5 to 44.5 in this one, Chris.
It's like nobody knows they're playing.
Yeah, don't blame the folks there.
I got a little bit of play plus 1.5. Even though we opened at 2, I moved it quickly down just because I don't really want to need anybody in this game more than I have to. But they took a little. They even took a little 1.5. Am I still at 1.5? Now I'm down to 1.
Down to 1.
I don't know. Can you imagine watching this game if you didn't have a bet on it?
Well, it'll be on one of the screens in here.
I know, but could you imagine sitting there and watching it? You're at home, like, honey, grab me a beer. I'm going to watch the Saints and Browns game.
You better be a dedicated fan or have a bet on the game. It's one of the two.
Without a bet, I don't.
Chris, I can tell you right now, it's going to be in that deep corner on the bottom right there.
Right where you can barely see.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay. Yeah.
It'll be right down there this week.
There's no TV in that block.
There's a speaker box over there.
Yeah, there you go.
That must be the TV Frankie.
That's the one he busted up. Yeah,
okay.
Exactly. Again, I crossed this off immediately. I have no idea. If you have an idea of what's going to happen in this game and you end up being right, you know what? Congratulations. That's all I'll say on that one.
This is where, too, a lot of times positioning on the schedule. If this game was last night,
people would be all over it, Vinny.
We wouldn't miss a play.
Yeah. But not getting the same kind of betting interest, nearly.
Let's go to Foxborough next. Patriots. You know what? I got to give Drake May credit. I've said it a few times. He's been significantly better than I thought he was going to be, especially with lack of weaponry around him and an offensive line that's terrible. And he's been totally adequate. And looks like he could very easily have a bright future if they start putting pieces around him correctly. The Patriots have been betting this game, Chris, down to 4.5 with the Rams on the road on a short week where, you know what? There have been some bad games mixed in what has been a good era with McVay and Stafford. Mm-hmm. I thought that was as bad of a performance as they've ever had together on Monday, where Miami was begging to get beat in that game. Mm-hmm. And the Rams, whether it was stupid turnovers, bad penalties, settling for field goals in the red zone, they just did everything wrong in that game. Mm-hmm. And now in a short week cross country against a young team that's, again, I don't think is any good, but gathering confidence over the last few weeks. I don't love this spot for LA here on the road, and I get why the folks have taken the Patriots in this game.
I do too, and I made the number 6 and I opened at 5.5, so I was okay with it. But the more I look at it, first of all, I think you're right on about Drake May. I think he has the potential to have a future. A lot of it, they got a new coaching staff there in New England. So let's see how they handle this young, talented kid. I don't have to tell Ryan, a lot of these guys screw up their quarterback more than they help them out. So we'll see what happens there. And I hate to bet momentum in the NFL. That's a good way to get killed. But I'm looking at this Ram team. Did they peak?
It's possible.
I think they might have. I really don't like the dog here so much, but I understand why people are on them. I think this Ram team, they may have shot their best shot already, whereas New England, I mean, they're playing hard. I see some slight improvement in that team. I kind of have the feeling New England's the right side here, although I wouldn't give this out as a play. I think it's going to be very close, but I think the Rams may have peaked.
When Mayo called his team out a few weeks back, even Belichick got, on the bandwagon. He shouldn't have done that. I have to tell you, this team's responded, frankly, right? A young team, and they could have went into a shell. They could have gone, they've gone in the opposite direction. God, it sounds like we're piling on Ryan. Look at what's happening. But look what's not just the Bears. Look at the Jets, because they got called out that same week, right? But of course, they've been called out ever since the season started.
We'll get to them later.
But the reality is that the Patriots have responded, and I think they're going to continue to get some support here. Now, I think there'll be support for the Rams, whether it's starting tonight or not. When we see
Sunday morning,
the public will get on the Rams, but no real surprise that there's support for the Patriots here, and I give them credit for responding to the coach.
Since Flores called them soft, they're 2-1, and their one loss was in overtime.
Exactly,
so
right.
You're 100% right, Vinny. Yeah. Normally with a young team, they just
they'd say they pack it in.
Forget
right?
this, we're packing this in.
We're done.
Instead, they've won 2 out of 3 and might not even finish in last place.
If they were a college team, they'd all be in a portal right now.
It's possible. All right, let's go to the AFC North, the big one, Baltimore, Pittsburgh. We know these teams don't like each other, guys. Just throwing that out there. First place on the line in the AFC North, and Chris, I think that the Pittsburgh Steelers are undervalued in this game.
I kind of do too.
At home against Baltimore, who, look, Jackson's had his problems against the Steelers through the years, and a Baltimore defense, and Chris, you've mentioned this a few times on the air this week. Perception is hard to break. And we are so used to, since this team moved from Cleveland, what is the calling card of the Baltimore Ravens? Their defense is going to just wreck you physically, and they're going to be as good as anyone in the league. It's complete opposite now. They have the best offense in the NFL, and their defense stinks. Yeah. And for Pittsburgh, their defense does not stink. They're quite darn good, as we know. And Russell Wilson's been awesome since taking over the starter job. Chris, I like the dog outright here. I think Pittsburgh's got more than enough to win this game outright. I took the 3 already, and if I see 3.5, I'm grabbing that immediately as well if that comes to fruition.
You might see that because they're laying the 3. Yeah. I made this game 1.5 Baltimore. So I'm not.
I like your number better.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not just a crazy Steeler fan. I mean, I think I got some numbers on my side. I do try to be certainly as objective as possible. In this, now once they kick off, I mean, I'm rooting for the Steelers. Let me tell you, but. I'm kind of with you. You look back again at that Raven defense. I mean, Ray Lewis is gone. Ed Reed is gone. Terrell Suggs is gone.
Chris McAllister's now walking through that door.
We got a whole bunch of guys that made that reputation, and they're all gone. Pardon me?
The coordinator's gone too.
Coordinator's gone too, right? So I mean, there's a lot of things that have changed for this Baltimore team. But again, somewhere within a lot of people's psyche, they still think it's there. It just isn't. Conversely, I think the Steeler defense is very legit. I think so far so good, with Russell Wilson. But he hasn't been great. He's had a couple of great plays that maybe the receivers helped him out a lot too. But nonetheless, I think the team has a lot of confidence in him. I think they're walking around with a little bit of a strut. I do like them certainly +3. And this is another game. I'd probably play the money. Excuse me. Probably the ribs are kicking back on me. I'd probably play the 3 as well. I mean, play the money line as well as the 3.
Something else about this game that's changed is I think the Steelers have the edge in the kicking game now. Tucker's not quite been the same.
Oh, definitely agree with that.
Oh, my gosh. Yeah, not even close.
Right, Chris?
Yeah.
We've been watching that. And in a close game, that could that could mean something, right? The Ravens' defense, it's their pass defense, and maybe Tomlin, in the back of his mind, had part of this. Was thinking about this when he made the quarterback change, because listen, Russell Wilson is certainly older than he was when he was up in Seattle, but he is a better passer. Mm-hmm. Right. So of the two, trying to maybe exploit that should be this is a great game. This is one of the three best games of the day, along with the Chiefs, Bills, and the Bengals, Chargers. And this is going to be a game, that I wish this is the one that they flexed out actually, because it's I think it's going to be that good a game to book. And certainly the bettors, everybody's going to be involved with this game. We talked about the Browns-Saints game. Not everybody's going to get involved in the Browns-Saints game, but everybody's going to get involved in this one.
No, this is a tremendous game. Yeah. In the AFC, you got all three windows. Excellent games. Yeah. Even though the Bengals record isn't sparkling, that is a good game.
But they're
on Sunday
alive.
night.
You see, they're a game behind out of a playoff spot. And you have to look at their schedule and the fact that they can score points. That's what's when we get to that game, we'll touch on it.
All right, let's go to Raiders and Dolphins next. Boy, Norv Turner, Scott Turner have to figure out this Raider offense. It's 2024, guys. Dolphins, I don't think they were overly impressive on Monday, but they needed that win and they got it.
They got it.
Credit to the Dolphins for winning that game on the road against the Rams. Now it's 7 at home, Chris. This opened 7. They took it up to 8, and now they're taking it back down the ladder on this game with a total of 44.
Wow. I made this a lot higher. I just not so much that I'm impressed with Miami, even though they played last week, and it certainly looked good in the win. But I wasn't overly impressed either. But this Raider team is just bad. I don't think Antonio Pierce was the answer at coach. I'm not sure what they could do at quarterback. I mean, there's just nothing right there. And I think right now Miami probably a little bit better. I think anything under 7 probably a lay here.
Were you looking for a teaser game?
I mean, this is one of the ones that have to be considered this week for sure. So, again, depending on the pricing on how many legs, either money line Miami or tease them down to 1. I will say this, and again, I was from the get-go was on this is not going to work with Antonio Pierce. They're just you're overcompensating for making the potential mistake with Bisaccia a few years ago, where we don't even know if Bisaccia would have worked or not. We have no clue.
Where's he at now?
He's Green Bay's special teams coach, and their special teams are they're okay.
He's not hurting them.
Okay, not hurting them. Better than they were because the special teams cost them a potential Super Bowl run a few years ago. But we're especially what's going on in Dallas right now, where we know Mike McCarthy's not going to be back, where we know Jerry Jones likes to make the flashy move over the move with substance, where the Deion Sanders rumors are going there.
Yeah.
Quite honestly, from a football perspective, since I would imagine Shador and Deion want to be together a little bit longer, this one makes a heck of a lot more football sense than here in Vegas potentially, as opposed to Dallas, since Dak is under the $60 million a year contract now.
There's nothing they could do with Dak. I mean, he's going to be the quarterback.
He's the Dallas quarterback forever now.
Yeah, until that contract runs out. I mean, the cap hit is just I never heard
astronomical.
Anything like that. But I don't know. We'll
see. We'll see.
I think it's Raider teams in a lot of trouble.
They're not good. There are a lot of bad teams. We've talked about this last week. There were 9 teams with 2 wins going in. Of course, a few of them beat each other last week.
No, there's
and New England beat Ryan's team. But again, there's a lot to be going on there. All right.
Jeff, your mic is off.
Oh, come on now. Hey, the Patriots beat the Jets too. We know this already. All right. Now we want bad quarterback play. Now we got fun here. The Detroit Lions, that's the good quarterback play, hosting the Jacksonville Jaguars. All right. So last week, Chris, Sam Darnold for the Minnesota Vikings against these Jaguars. Here was what Sam Darnold did in that game last week. He was 24 of 38, no touchdowns, 3 picks. He was the better quarterback in that game. That's how bad Mac Jones was. Now, Jones was 14 to 22 for $111 and 2 interceptions. Yikes. He's starting again because Trevor Lawrence is hurt. Tank Bigsby is also out again after getting injured early last week against Minnesota. Look, the Lions were lucky to win last week against Houston.
They were.
They were lucky. Goff throws 5 picks in 2.5 quarters. You were supposed to lose that game.
But they shut him out in the second half.
Yeah, and look, we'll get to Houston later. They have their own problems that they have to deal with. 14, 47, I don't know, Chris. This is a ton of points in the NFL. But then I look at what Mac Jones did last week. It's like, wow, how can you bet on Mac Jones even getting that many points? Oh, and he covered, by the way, last week, too.
Well, one of the old bingo slots in my show with Gil, diminishing returns.
Yeah.
I mean, this looks like a diminishing returns game for me. Detroit came back last week. Fantastic win. They shouldn't have won that game, considering a lot of factors in that game. But, they just have bigger fish to fry right now than Jacksonville. They might win by 14 by accident. Who knows? But I think this number this just got too high. 14 in an NFL game, as bad as Jacksonville is and as great as Detroit is. I got them ranked my top team. This just looks like a game where, go back and look. Do you know how easy it is to cover double digits in the NFL? It happens all the time with games you never think should be that way. This is the way I think. This might be, 27-17, something like that. And I think, just an easy coast job for Detroit. But, I'd like the dog to cover in this one.
Well, the other thing along those lines, Chris, is that, one thing about Dan Campbell, it's happened this year and it happened a bit last year. He's left his starters in games too long, late in games when they've had it in hand, and it's cost them some injuries. So the reason I bring that up is because if it is, late in the game and they have it in hand, maybe he doesn't, and that's how the dog can cover, right?
So I'm happy you brought injuries up.
Yeah.
Well, no Laporta this week. He got hurt last week early, so he's out. So again, if you're going down the board and there's anytime touchdowns, remember that when you're looking at tight ends this week on the Detroit side. Chris, I just go back to your point. 14 in the NFL is like 28 in college.
Yeah.
The back door is so wide open. Right. Where this could be 31. This could be 31-3, and you could be sweating it out at the end here.
Yeah.
It's more than possible that's the case.
Plays this week, I think. Right?
It looks like it is. By the way, Frank lated with Detroit, so he's unconcerned about the back door. Oh. Yes, unconcerned.
That should tell you all you need to know.
Wait a second, and he had a late of 14.
Yes,
naturally.
Yeah, not the 13 and a half, the 14. Yes,
attaboy. That's belief.
Yeah, there we go. All right, let's go to Nashville next. Titans. That was a funky game last week against the Chargers for them. If that Herbert play doesn't get overturned, it's a totally different looking thing here. They lose by 10, don't cover, unfortunately, via the Titans last week. By the way, that was the first Charger game. We'll get to a stat later, but that was the first Charger game that was played in the 40s this year.
Really?
The first one.
Yeah.
And all their other games have been sub 40 so far this year.
That's hardball.
I think
football.
I think the second one's coming.
Yeah. Well, we'll get to that later. Titans are 6-point dogs at home against Minnesota. We just told you what Minnesota did last week. Their defense was great. Darnold is really starting to show the cracks, though. And this is just kind of what is going to be with Sam Darnold now, where there's enough tape in the Kevin O'Connell offense out there where it's going to basically be on Darnold, where you just have to limit the turnovers. There's enough there in this offense. You still should be able to be effective. But this is now, I know they played well in the second half against Indy, but that first half they got shut out and it was brutal for them. This is 2 straight weeks where the cracks are 3 straight weeks even, where the cracks are starting to show for Darnold a little bit on that offensive side of the ball.
I think I said it last week or maybe even the week before. I think Minnesota is just overrated. They're not that good. And, you'd start with Darnold, but the rest of the offense too. I mean, other than Jefferson, and who's the tight end? Hawkinson?
Well, Hawkinson is now back, yes.
Yeah. So, I mean, those two guys, they're good and they're certainly going to help Darnold. But, I like Tennessee in this game. I think, this is a tough game. A a team at home against a team that I think has peaked and is on the downward trend right now. And again, I hate betting momentum in the NFL because that's a good way to lose. But I think right now, if you look at the momentum, just look at not just the momentum, but the overpricing of Minnesota right now. I think they're being overpriced. I think it's a case, and I'll talk about this in another game in a little bit, but you're kind of selling high on Minnesota. I wish there was another point involved where you could take 7, but that's not to be. But I think right now the Titans are the right side in this one.
I think if you're going to bet the Titans, you may want to wait because I think the public may drive this price back up.
Right.
I agree.
I know they took 6.5. I think it would definitely go up if it was in the 1 o'clock window, but it's not. But I still think that we still have 2 days, and I think the public is going to take an interest in the Vikings. But the Titans' defense is not bad. It's not an awful unit.
Yeah,
so I could see that the pros will be looking to take the points here with the Titans.
this is kind of just one of those where just avoid the Will Levis backbreaking turnover leading the points the other way.
Yeah.
And it's kind of what I got this feel for me in this game where
Vikings defense is good too.
Well, that's the problem. You are going against one of the defenses that is more than capable of converting, of cashing in a Levis fiasco into points. I'm kind of with you, Chris. If this was 7, this would be an auto. For sure. But there's a reason that this is not 7. But it would be a lean to Tennessee for me in this game where, boy, if you're Minnesota, you do got to find a way to just win this game. It doesn't matter, at least from the Vikings' perspective, they cover. Not does for our perspective, though. All right, before we go into the 105 Pacific games, let's go to the game that got flexed out of Sunday Night Football. Thank God this got flexed out. Okay. We can be quick on this. This is why I'm putting this here as opposed to later. It's lower on your rotation numbers, but it's the Jets hosting the Colts. Anthony Richardson's back after just 2 absolutely abysmal games from Flacco, where, quite frankly, I think if Richardson played in both of them, they might have actually won both of them. That's how bad Flacco played. The Jets, people still keep betting the Jets. They did last week. Didn't work for them. Arizona, that game was... Vinny, that was a game as soon as Arizona scored the opening drive touchdown. It's like, all right, we're done here. We don't have to do anything else. And the Jets get blown out now, 3-7. They're 4-point favorites here. The total's gone down. Chris, what are we looking at here in this game where you got 2 teams that are both going in the wrong direction right now?
Yeah, how can one team get bet up to 4?
I agree with you.
We opened the game. We opened 3, which I thought that was high because I made the number 2.5 Jets, and they laid it. They laid 3. They laid 3.5. I did get a little bit of money plus 4, but not enough to move me back. But I think this move was just ridiculous. Who are the Jets to be a 4-point favorite? I absolutely do not see it. And listen, the wise guys with some big money are on the Jets in this one, but I got to disagree with them. I think the Colts plus 4 looks like the right side to me.
The question, a couple of things, right? Has Anthony Richardson improved his cardio in the last 2 weeks? Is that why he's? Listen, I think it's a play against Richardson going back in against a Jet defense that's not as good as they figured to be going into the season, but I just think it's a defense that's going up against a very inexperienced professional quarterback. He was an inexperienced college quarterback when they drafted him.
Right.
And I think it's a game that folks believe the Jets are just maybe get right in. Not that they're going to make a playoff run, but I just think that's the scenario here with this. I think that's the reason for the move. Look, the Colts, they're good at playing close games, right? Within one score games. But I just think it's a bet against Richardson, not against the Colts. That's what I think.
So, by the way, last week's Colt game was the first game not decided by one score, 30-20. Right. So
week before it was 8, right?
It was 8, so it was still there.
Still there.
The Jets defense, since firing Robert Saleh, has gone from a borderline top 10 unit to a bottom 3 unit over the stretch. There's only one game that haven't. With all the players on that defense, it's kind of amazing that it's devolved as badly as it has. This is an absolute play on Indianapolis plus the points at 4. If Anthony Richardson doesn't play well, so be it. Jonathan Taylor could run for $150 in this game.
I don't think this game would have gone up, believe it or not, even as bad as Flacco was in the last 2 games. I don't think it would have gone to 4.
I 100% agree with you,
I just
Vinny.
think it's a play against Richardson. That's
agree with
what
you.
I see. I don't know what else it could be.
Yeah,
I'm open to suggestion.
I'm with you, Vinny. I think just the market is blindly going against Richardson here. And look, he's been bad. No arguing that. But the Jets' defense has been as bad as anyone the last month plus now. All right, let's go. Very, very good, guys. Let's go to San Francisco next. The Niners. Boy, the Niners last week. What a weird one. They win on a last-second field goal by Jake Moody after he missed 3.
Yeah, I know.
Baker Mayfield made one of the greatest plays I've ever seen a quarterback make to keep the game moving. Somehow avoiding getting sacked with one arm by Nick Bosa, who's one of the best players in the league, and he still made the play. Tampa's off this week. We'll get them next week. They're still alive for the playoffs because their schedule's a joke.
Very favorable schedule.
Their schedule's a joke the rest of the way. But here you go. Niners 6.5 home against the Seahawks, who are healthier than they were before the bye. But it is really gone wayward for Seattle after that great 3-0 start for the Hawks earlier in the year.
I made a number 7.5, but I'm not too keen on laying a big number. The Niners again seem like there's a little something missing. And we go through this every year. The loser of the Super Bowl has a terrible point spread record the following year. And we always say this one looks different. This one looks different. And I'll be damned, it ain't different. They're just still a little overrated, including by me. I made the number 7.5. But I got to tell you, I like the market number better. I like the 6.5 better because I wouldn't know what to do with the 6.5. Ordinarily, you make a number 7.5, and the number's 6.5. That means you like the favorite. I don't like the favorite here. I think I'm still in the mode of overrating this team from last year. This is definitely a pass for me.
Seahawks got exposed after those first 3 games based on who they played in those first 3 games. With all due respect. There'll be support for the Niners here. There'll be some early carryover. This is a 105 game. They'll bet the Niners, especially McCaffrey's second game back type thing as well. So I could see bettors with support for the Seahawks here. And I think when it gets to 7, then you'll probably see some buyback and take them.
So second matchup between these teams. Remember, the first one was when the Niners, it was early, it was week 6, but it kind of felt like, hey, San Francisco got to find a way to win this game to get back to 500. And even though the Niners only won by 12, if you look at the box score, the Niners destroyed them.
Dominating.
8 yards per play in that game. Seahawks were barely 5. There was a thrashing that the final score didn't quite indicate how badly the Niners beat them up that game. I like your 7.5 better than the 6.5. I would lay it with the Niners at this number,
but
even with everything.
You take 7.5, wouldn't you?
Well, we're going to try to middle the game at 7, Vinny.
No, I'm saying
why not,
middle.
Right?
But
I wouldn't lay it.
No, you wouldn't lay it. I'm just telling you.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But look, I think everything you said stands on the Niners, though. Where it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Unless if it's the oddball case, the loser of the Super Bowl. Automatic regression.
Yeah, they just don't cover the number the following year. They just don't.
All right, let's go to a game that confuses me like crazy. The Denver Broncos, who were the closest of anyone to beating the Kansas City Chiefs this year, field goal block at the end, they lose by 2. Now go home at 5-5 to take on the 6-4 Falcons, who, quite frankly, I thought we were possibly able to retire this term, but the Atlanta Falcons falconed last week against the Saints. 3 missed Younghoe Koo field goals, amounting to a 3-point loss to a bottom feeder in the Saints. Look, Atlanta's still in great shape in that division because they have a 2-game lead on Tampa with a 2-0 record against Tampa and an easy schedule to boot the rest of the way. So they're probably going to win the NFC South. But, Chris, this game confuses me. Because I look at this and see Denver's stout defense against an O-line that has been a mixed bag this year in Atlanta. But then I see Well, did Denver just have their best shot? Did they just are they going to have enough in the tank after going blow for blow and quite frankly was better than Kansas City a week ago in a game they should have won?
Should have beat them. Yeah.
I don't know what the heck to do with this game. This is a super difficult game, which makes Denver 2.5 at home seem about right to me.
Yeah. I made it number 1.5, but I think I kind of agree with the market more. I think 2.5 is a little better number. And it's pretty insignificant, right around those kind of dead numbers. But still, I think there's a pretty good team. And I said it last week, and I was wrong. I said Denver, when they play a really good team, they kind of get thrashed. When they play a bad team, they win. So I'm a big divergence here. I think they may have found a little something, though, last week. And Peyton, not my favorite guy, but he is a good coach. He's another guy that goes out there and wins. Boy, it must be something in that Colorado area, because I don't think he is a very good guy. But, boy, he does win. There's no doubt about it. So I'm not saying I like the Broncos here, but I do like the 2.5 better than what was my number, was 1.5. Gun to my head, I'd probably take the Broncos in this spot.
So, rookie quarterback and coach, who's done better? Look at look at some of the situations around the league. Look at Chicago and look at this one, because Knicks and Peyton, it's not like they're having a love fest. All right, it's not Harbaugh and Herbert, right? So these guys are in sync. The defense is good. They play hard. I will tell you, you'll see Falcon money when the game gets to 3.
I agree with you.
Okay, and that'll be the take. I mean, they laid the 1.5, they laid the 2, up to 2.5 now. 3 will be a take that we can then call for two-way action for you, Ann. So that's how this game's going to play out.
I'll say this with Knicks. He has steadily improved as the year's gone along. And
he's not gotten all. He's taken what Peyton's given him, and it hasn't been. There's not a lot of honey. There's a lot of vinegar there. So
there we go. You're bringing the Italian out there, Vinny. There we go.
Well, yeah.
Look, but again, I was in the camp. I thought the Broncos were going to be one of the worst teams in the NFL. I thought the roster was weak. I thought Knicks was going to be the worst quarterback in the league for the majority of the year. To Sean Payton's credit, that has not happened. Yeah. And to Knicks' credit, where it was ugly at the beginning of the year, he was great last week. They lost on a fluky play at the end of the game.
Rolls off his back. He was
right in the middle of the playoff hunt.
Yeah, they're in the 7-hole right now in the AFC.
Kid has got emotional toughness. That's we talk about physical toughness, right? In mental toughness, but there's emotional toughness too. It would be very easy for a rookie quarterback to just withdraw. He's not. He's thriving on it.
No, he's played great last week. That's for sure. 2.5 with Denver in this one. All right, now to the game of the week, not only just from all circumstances, but our chat voted this the game of the week as well. Kansas City goes to Buffalo. The Bills are 2.5-point favorites. You guys haven't moved that number all week, didn't I? Would imagine.
Didn't we open 2?
Did you open 2?
It's 2.5.
No, I'm sorry. You're right. We opened 2.5.
Yeah, so hasn't moved all week. 46 to total. That's up a half from the beginning of the week. All right, my rule of thumb is this with this rivalry. If these two teams play in the regular season, Buffalo wins. If these two teams play in the playoffs, Kansas City wins. It's a regular season game. Kansas City has been very fortunate to still be undefeated. They very easily could have more losses. But look, when you have the best, even though he hasn't played at his best, when you have the best quarterback in the league, and then you arguably have the best defense in the league, guess what? The luck's going to be on your side. That's just the nature of the beast. But with that all said, I like the Bills in this spot. There are some questions. There are injury report things that I'm not betting this at the moment, but I need to see what happens here with some injury things because Dalton Kincaid got ruled out today.
Yes.
That's a big deal for Buffalo's offense. I need to see what Amari Cooper ends up being once we get to game day. And I also want to see on the Chiefs' end, if their injury report gets a little bit better, still not quite yet ready for Pacheco. Looks like he'll be back next week, not this week. But it's a lean to Buffalo. But look, it's Patrick Mahomes as an underdog, so it's always a hard side to be going against that.
I made a number 2.
Yeah.
One you didn't mention, Butker.
Yeah, Butker's on
Kansas
the shelf.
City. He's
1
out.
month.
He's out.
IR. Another great job by the Jets on that one, by the way.
So they picked up the Jets.
So the Jets kicker Spencer Schrader, who was responsible for all 6 points last week, reverted back to the Jets practice squad.
Gone.
And then the Jets did not activate him in time before Kansas City signed him. So job well done. Jets will have forgot to mention this with the Jet game. Jets will have their 4th kicker in 4 weeks.
When do we start blaming Ambassador Johnson?
Well, Ambassador Johnson might not even be there to be blamed at that point, Chris.
No, he owns the joint. He's going to be blamed.
Until he hands it over to Chris in a month and a half. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Boy, I'll tell you what, when it started, I kind of liked Buffalo. And I started looking a little deeper. The Butker injury is significant. Yeah. But Buffalo has some injuries too. And I always think, now, Butker's maybe the best kicker in the league. He's certainly in the conversation. But you can always find a kicker. You don't always need 60-yard field goals, which he can get you. So, I was watching Joe Fortenbaugh, friend of ours, friend of the show. He was on Get Up this morning, and he likes Kansas City. He says, right now, it just feels like you're selling high a little bit on Buffalo. And I could see his point. Now, all that being said, I wouldn't touch this game. You might want to bet in game or something like that. Maybe if Buffalo scores the first touchdown, you could get a decent price on Kansas City. I'd maybe try to look to do something like that. Yeah. Maybe if Buffalo has the lead at the half, you can get Kansas City plus a couple points in the game. I would. This game is just. I mean, it's going to be a great game, but betting wise, I could not touch this one.
I guess the question is which injury of the two. Let's look at Butker for the Chiefs and Kincaid for the Bills. Which one is more impactful? Right, well, you have to make that determination. It's hard to, you can make a case for both because if it's the Chiefs, you know what? It changes some play calling, right? You're not going to. You need that extra 5-8 yards with a new guy coming in. But the Bills have been evolving during the course of the season too, and Kincaid's a big part of that evolution. So to your point, Chris, maybe the in game is the way to go. This is a home field number right here. It's basically a pick'em game, right? I mean, and so. In this case, the Bills. I think it stays pretty steady. I think it's going to be a good two-way betting game, just for this of what we're talking about here. Because you could still make it, even with the injuries, you can still make a case for both teams. Coaching edge, Chiefs.
Sure.
Yes, definitely.
Quarterbacks, both terrific. Let's face it, right? I mean, they're great. I think. Allen's done a really good job this year of taking care of a much better job of taking care of the ball, and then Mahomes is, my gosh, he's the great intangible. So
Allen was sloppier last week than he's been all year.
All year, yeah.
He had more interceptions last week than he had in the whole season going into the game.
Well, he didn't throw his first one until a couple of weeks ago, right?
Didn't throw his first one until against Seattle. So that was week 8, which for Josh Allen, that's amazing, especially where he was last year at the beginning of the year. I will say this for Schreider, the new kicker for Kansas City, monster leg. In college, he never exceeded 68% percentage on field goals. Really? So you're dealing with a kid with a rocket leg, but not a ton of accuracy, even though he was 2 for 2 last week. Is the lone bright spot for the Jets a week ago. And for Butker, we're not going to see him for a month. He's on IR designated to return. So we'll see.
Surgery today.
On the meniscus.
Surgery today.
Yeah. All right, let's go to Sunday night. This game flexed in, and they flexed a good one.
Yeah, that's a good game.
Chargers host the Bengals. So I just want to look at this from the Cincinnati perspective. T. Higgins is expected to be back, which is big news for the Bengals, even though last week it didn't matter because Chase went for a zillion yards, even though they lost that game to Baltimore. By the way, going for 2 was the right call, at least for me in that game.
Oh, yeah.
I
agree.
Yeah, I think it was the right call.
Record and the situation.
Yeah, I agree. Absolutely.
So this is the ultimate contrast to styles. The Bengals defense is among the worst in the NFL, and Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase are having their best seasons in the NFL. And that's why the Bengals, because of that defense, are 4-6 and not in amazing playoff position. The Chargers, and, it's amazing for Jim Harbaugh. He goes to college for basically a decade after that great run in San Francisco, and he comes right back, takes over arguably the worst coach team in the NFL. And
only for the last 20 years.
Yeah, and especially so for the last few with Staley there. And comes right in, and this team that hasn't had a good defense in forever has arguably the best defense in the NFL.
Yeah. And
Herbert has been great the last month. And here you are, the Chargers with a chance to win today. If they win this game on Sunday night as a 1.5-point favorite, they're 7-3. They're coasting to the AFC playoffs at this point as the 5 seed if they win this game.
Boy, you're making me rethink this. I kind of like the Bengals.
I didn't say who I like in this game. I'm just giving the case for both.
Well, boy, Harbaugh is one of those guys. He's a strange bird, let me tell you.
That's one way to put it.
Damn, this guy can coach. He can just win. And, man, what he has done to this Charger team is just incredible. Now, Taylor for the Bengals, not so much. But this game for the Bengals, I think this means so much to them. If they lose this game, they're probably out of it.
It makes it very hard if they lose.
If they lose this game, I hate, again, the must win, they must not be that good. But I kind of like them in this spot. Now, again, a number play, I made my power ratings come to the Chargers a 0.5 point favorite. So essentially a pick. So you're taking 2 in this game. Now, what are you taking now? 1.5?
1.5.
1.5 plus 105. Boy, that's kind of pretty damn close, But I kind of favor the Bengals a little bit in this game. But it's close game. I think it's a hell of a game to flex. Gun to my head, I'd take the Bengals. But, boy, I'd be very, very tepid doing so.
Bengals can score. Now they get Higgins back. I think there's going to be more support for the Bengals in this game because they can score. Chargers would prefer to play in more of a grind out game. But a terrific game, and obviously carryover is going to play into this number too, being now that it's the primetime game. So it could go up depending on the day. It could come down, maybe down to pick. I think the Chargers close as a slight favorite as they are now, but there's going to be support for both teams in this game, for everything we've mentioned.
Before last week's 27-17 game against the Titans, the high water mark in a Charger game this year was 39.
There you go.
High water mark.
What's
39.
the most they've given up all year?
The most they've given up all year is 20 to the Pittsburgh Steelers. Oh, of course it was the Steelers. But that was the high water mark. That was a weird game if you remember, too.
I don't remember it that way.
Herbert got hurt midstream.
Yeah.
And
he was hurting going into the game, too,
right.
And then he had to come out of the game.
Yeah, there's the plantar fasciitis still.
And
the ankle.
Fields was still...
It was Fields.
Was still playing for the Steelers.
So you're in a scenario here where... Again, one thing's got to give. Either the Bengal offense is going to have a bad night or the Charger defense is going to have a bad night.
This total is up
48.
3 points.
Wow.
That's a lot for a Charger game.
It sure is.
But that's also speaks to, I think, what the bettors think. That's why they like the Bengals, too, because they think that they're going to be able to score games, dictate the pace of the game.
So I'll say this. This is with the last game we talked about. I like the dogs teased up with the Bengals and the Chiefs this week. I'd love to see it if Cincinnati somehow got back to 2.5 and then do it then. But even a 2, 1.5.
7.5 isn't terrible.
7.5 is good. 7.5 is real good still in that scenario. All right, well, we end with a dud game to end. But the Battle of Texas, that going into the year, boy, this could have been really something else, but the Cowboys have been as disappointing as anyone.
Talk about bad quarterback
play.
The best team every June.
So here's all I'll say is, because Cooper Rush is going to get the start again, how bad is Trey Lance that we don't even get to see Trey Lance yet? Or is it just a case that we know how bad he is at this rate? Texans have had plenty of problems too. Look, you get 5 Jared Goff interceptions last week. And you still can't win that game at home. Now, I hated how they executed the end of the game because when you're kicking a 57-yard field goal, if you miss, you're Detroit just needs 15 yards in order to get in Bates' range.
Yes.
They got it, and you lost because of it, because Bates scraped both of those field goals by about a foot on both uprights, the tying one and the winning one. I'm usually not punt guy, but I would have punted in that spot if I were Ryans. And we're starting to see the cracks with Ryan, so I still think he's a very good practice game week coach. He's done a lot of stuff in game this year that had me scratching my head of I don't think this is the right call. Again, it shouldn't matter this week because Dallas is a mess. And if you were losing to this version of Dallas, you got a lot of soul searching to do as a 7-point favorite if you're Houston on the road here in this one.
I know 99% of you won't listen to me.
Go ahead.
Be careful teasing road favorites.
Okay.
I'm just going to tell you right now. Be careful. They could win this game, obviously, but I'm just telling you, overall, teasing road favorites is probably not a good strategy. My numbers come to 7.5 in this game, so I don't know what to tell you. There's another one. I might look to bet in game, see if maybe Cooper Rush can find a little something, and you bet the dog, or I don't know. This is just a brutal game.
I was surprised at how he played last week, honestly, because he was quite serviceable previously. He was throwing 2-yard passes. His average pass completion, I think, was 2.5 yards.
Oh, Vinny, it was
at least up until right before he came out.
Forget pass completion.
Yeah.
How about that's per attempt?
Yeah,
per attempt, it was less than 2 yards.
I mean, so. And by the way, we talk about the Lions just for a second. This kicker, they lost their kicker before the season started.
Yeah, and then signed Jake Bates.
Right, and Bates here's Bates having it, which is good for him. It's a good story. Cowboys faltering. Texans, we talk about their record and in game and Ryan's. It's a different animal this year too when you're playing a first place schedule.
Yeah, you bet.
Right. So now this is a different situation. Here they are, a touchdown favorite on the road. Chris is right. Be careful here. The Cowboys are playing for. You would hope they're playing for pride. A lot of these guys should be playing for their jobs.
Right.
We know the coaching staff is. I'm not sure it's going to make a difference. But the good thing is it's still a public team in the Cowboys, and they're gonna draw some attention. It's a take of the number when it gets above 7, and it is the Monday night game. So, but if this game was on Sunday, certainly would have lost a lot of its luster.
Jeff, you asked why don't we see Trey Lance? I think McCarthy right now, he is coaching to keep his job, and he says let the next guy develop him. I'm trying to win this game, and whatever games I could pull out the rest of the way.
Here's all I'll say with McCarthy's job, he's done.
Yeah,
he's done.
I'm with you, but you're not McCarthy. I mean, he's still thinking I'm going to try to hold on to this.
Well, look, someone's going to give him a head coaching job again. It's just a matter of which franchise does it.
See, that's another thing.
Yeah.
He wants to go out, as competitive as possible. Maybe not win, but as competitive as possible for his next job.
Not just throw in the towel.
Well, again, but with Micah Parsons, again, talk about guys who just need to stop talking. Micah Parsons after the game last week, just going after McCarthy. All right, look, we all know that Mike McCarthy can be a punching bag from time to time for being made. We get it. Mike McCarthy's also won a Super Bowl. So, as a head coach in this league. So, let's stop throwing him under the bus if you're Micah Parsons, who's accomplished, in the grand scheme of things, nothing in this league in comparison to what McCarthy has done.
Got back.
What was that? And just got back, too, yes.
Yeah. Welcome. Thanks for coming back.
By the way, I know we're a few weeks away from Thanksgiving, but boy, Thanksgiving Day, where one of the games is Giants and Cowboys. Spend time with your family, guys.
Yeah, I'm going to be watching the turkey.
Yeah, just to make sure you have the turkey ready during the beginning of that game.
Extra basting.
Yeah.
All right, before we go, Chris, what you got for us this week? You got some plays for us this week.
Didn't do so good last week.
Yeah, you did win with Jackson. We did win with the Jaguars last week.
I had 2 wins last week.
And the Steelers.
I was 2-2 in the pros, 0-3 in the colleges.
Yeah.
That was bad.
Yeah, but
I told you before, I wasn't crazy about the colleges last week, but I liked them. I don't want to make excuses. All right, I got 5 plays this week.
Okay.
West Virginia, going against the public. Liberty, Jerry Falwell, you. But they're a pretty good team. What can I tell you? But they're laying a big number. But
so West Virginia plus 1.5 is the number we'll give you on that right now.
Liberty, were they 14?
And then Liberty, the Flames
14.5
are 14. We'll give you 14. There's enough.
There's some 14s in the market.
There's enough 14 in the market. They are 14 at UMass. You guys are market high, by the way, on that game at 14.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
Steelers
plus 3.
plus the 3. Titans, also known as the Titanics, but give me the Titans
plus 6.
plus 6. And the Colts plus
the 4 on Indy. So the recap for Chris: West Virginia plus 1.5 at home against Baylor. Liberty 14 on the road against UMass and Amherst. Why is that game being played? That's a better question. Steelers 3-point dogs at home against the Ravens. Titans 6-point dogs at home against the Vikings, and the Colts 4-point dogs in the Meadowlands against
4 dogs and a favorite. That's kind of my MO.
A little better.
Yeah,
more of the design you're looking for more times than not, right?
So I busted your chops by playing against your Jets.
I think you're going to be right on that game.
Did you see the picture I sent to the crew
Yes.
One of my Green Bay Packer friends sent me that. I think I sent that to Ryan or sent it to the crew back in August too. So
yeah, it's
pretty funny picture. I don't know if we can put it on the post.
The baby in the Bears jersey crying and the baby in the Packers jersey as happy as can be. It's great. All right, that's all the time we have for you. If you're in the chat, thank you as always. Mini Dar, Bob, Dean were in there as well at the end. Vince, Not Sean did post in there. Good for Not Sean, who Not Sean is no longer in the building anymore either. Giovanni, B4, Roger, Ryan, Agent 87, and Vince, always awesome to hear from you guys as well. Jerry, Ryan, Vince.
Thanks to the guys behind the glass.
Wherever Sean went, and Ann, Drew Dog, wherever you may be as well. Always awesome, as always, on these Fridays.
And thanks for listening.
Yeah, always. Yeah, thank you. Watching, listen. It's always
watching.
Everyone. We love having you. Normal time next week, but I just want to get out in front of this. The week of Thanksgiving, we're going on Wednesday. So next week, normal time, 2:00, but Thanksgiving week, we're Wednesday at 2. So we'll remind you again next week. But be on the lookout for that the week of Thanksgiving. For Vinny, for Chris, I'm Jeff. We'll see you again tomorrow at 8 a.m. Alex and I are here to break down all the college football right here on Sports by the Book Football Frenzy.